When a worldwide disaster strikes, everything changes. Solar flares scorch the planet, plunging it into an era of relentless extreme heat. Glaciers melt away, rivers evaporate, and just when it seems things couldn't get worse, nightfall brings toxic rain that poisons whatever water remains. Humanity doesn't just struggle, it practically queues up for extinction. Amid this collapsing world, there is our boy Chen. As expected, in his previous life, Chen met a fate that was as tragic as it was horrifying. Betrayed and slaughtered for food by his own girlfriend's family. Talk about a breakup gone really wrong. But fate, for reasons unknown, gives him a second chance. Chen is reborn. This time, however, he carries all the memories of his past life, and none of the hesitation. Along with his rebirth comes something even more valuable: spatial powers. With this ability, Chen can store vast amounts of supplies in a separate space, essentially turning himself into a one-man apocalypse warehouse. While others panic buy instant noodles, Chen is out here stockpiling like he's preparing for the end of 10 worlds, not just one. Using his powers, he builds the ultimate safe house, a perfectly controlled environment where heat, scarcity, and toxic rain are nothing more than distant problems. While the outside world burns, Chen relaxes in cool comfort, casually eating ice cream as if it's just another summer afternoon. Meanwhile, everyone else is busy becoming human toast. But survival isn't his only goal. Chen remembers everything: the betrayal, the pain, the injustice. And this time, he refuses to be a victim. With ruthless precision, he begins settling old scores, starting with his ex and those who wronged him. Revenge, after all, is best served well. As chaos spreads and society crumbles, Chen doesn't just survive, he thrives. Using foresight and careful planning, he amasses wealth, resources, and influence. People begin to notice. Women are drawn to him, allies gather, and enemies, well, they don't tend to last very long. Step by step, Chen transforms from a prepared survivor into something far greater, a ruler in a broken world. And while humanity struggles under the blazing sun and poisoned skies, Chen sits comfortably at the top, watching it all unfold like it's the most intense reality show ever created. Except this time, he's not a contestant. He's the one running the game. Well, the summary of the story had already been told, so let me remind everyone that before diving in, don't forget to like and subscribe, while also sharing your thoughts in the comments, because even at the end of the world, engagement still matters. Now let's start from the very beginning in detail. The date is March 13th, 2030. Inside Luocheng Pedestrian Street, a man tells that borrowing 5 million yuan is no small matter. He lights a cigarette and remarks that his interest rate is a bit high. The man is identified as Zhang Yang, boss of the Dajia gang and an underground moneylender in Luocheng. The young man says that as long as Zhang Yang is willing to lend, the high interest is acceptable. Zhang Yang states the terms: 5 million will become 7 million in half a year, with collateral of equal value required. The young man nervously hands over his house property deed titled Commercial Housing Contract and asks him to check it. Zhang Yang reads it and notes that the house is old but located in a valuable area, but admits that one house is not enough for 5 million. The young man says even 4 million will do. He adds that he has consulted a master and claims his luck is good, promising repayment on time. Zhang Yang leans back and says that 3.5 million yuan is acceptable, and anything more would mean a loss for him. The young man immediately agrees. Thanking Zhang Yang and promising to repay quickly, Zhang Yang confirms that repayment will be 3.5 million, and if the money is not returned on time, the house will be taken. He adds that once the paperwork is signed, the funds will be transferred within 3 days. The young man reviews the document in silence. He then states that he has one condition. Zhang Yang shows mild interest and asks what it is. 10 minutes later, the young man exits the building with a heavy-set man beside him, thanking him for the help. His phone alerts him that 3.5 million yuan has been credited to his account. The young man reflects that the apocalypse will descend in 1 month and no one will be around to demand repayment. Now that he has the money, he decides not to live the same life he lived before. He recalls the previous world, where an intense solar disaster struck the Earth, causing extreme temperature rise. Humanity entered a terrifying high-temperature apocalypse as fire and destruction consumed the world. At that time, humanity entered a terrifying 30-day high-temperature apocalypse. Mutated creatures appeared, including beast-like predators feeding on remains in the ruined streets. Zhang Yang laughs over the contract, convinced the borrower will be unable to repay and will lose the house. His subordinate points out that the house was valued high enough for the loan. Zhang Yang dismisses the concern and orders contact with the casino to prepare to collect the house once repayment fails. The young man walks through the city checking his phone. The transfer of 3.5 million yuan is confirmed. He notes that many people still trust interest lending and considers Zhang Yang confident but short-sighted. Once the money changes hands, recovery will be impossible. In his previous life is recalled. The earth dried out, vegetation withered, creatures mutated, and order collapsed. Resources became scarce, and survival turned people ruthless. Those with supplies became rulers. Even former billionaires and celebrities were reduced to begging for food and water. Those without protection were left to die in the streets. Now reborn, he notes that 1 full month remains before the disaster descends, which is enough time for preparation. He notices an ice cream shop ahead and turns his attention toward it. Inside the shop, customers stand at the counter, and a waitress in uniform serves them. The young man looks toward the counter as curiosity draws his attention. It is noted that the legendary high-end ice cream sold there is a luxury even in peaceful times. In his previous life, he had bought that brand several times. Giving such ice cream to someone had once been considered an even greater waste than feeding it to a dog. A woman enjoys one of the ice creams like she'll be enjoying yours. And like you, the young man decides not to think further and resolves to enjoy it as well. He approaches the counter and requests 10% of every type of ice cream available. The people nearby react in surprise at the size of the order. Onlookers question whether he can afford it and comment on how calmly the order was placed. The waitress is shocked and asks if he is serious, explaining that the shop only sells high-end ice cream and that 10% of each type will cost over 200,000 yuan in total. He confirms the order without hesitation. A woman nearby assumes that with his ordinary appearance, paying in public will be embarrassing. The young man turns his gaze toward her and asks what right she has to question him. The woman confronts him angrily and warns that even if he insists on showing off, he will not escape embarrassment in public. He responds with a faint smile that only irritates her further. She points at him in outrage. He turns away and asks the staff to pack all the ice cream, taking everything. He opens his phone and displays his account balance, showing more than 20 million yuan. The waitress freezes at the sight of it. She states that this situation requires approval from the manager and asks him to wait. The manager arrives and formally asks what he needs. The young man instructs the manager to calculate the total price of all ice cream in the store and says there is no need to continue business for the day. The manager agrees and begins checking the figures, muttering that this single transaction equals nearly the entire month's revenue and that normally only a few customers buy such products. The manager reports that the displayed ice cream alone is worth around 1 million yuan. The young man nods and tells the manager to transfer 300,000 yuan first as a deposit and to deliver all inventory to his address shortly. The manager readily agrees and tells him to leave it in his hands. He turns back toward the women and tells them they may choose any ice cream they want from the store. It is confirmed that Chen Nuo is paying. The crowd reacts with surprise. Several people comment that he is truly rich and that he looks better the more they look at him. The attention shifts fully in his direction, with a few silent reassessments made on the spot. The young man and protagonist of the story, Chen Nuo, looks at the woman and remarks that the offer applies to everyone except her. She collapses to the floor in shock as he stands calmly in front of her and tells her she should have known better than to show off. He turns his head aside, uninterested in her reaction. Later, Chen Nuo sits on a bench and tastes the high-end ice cream. He notes that the flavor and texture live up to the price. He continues eating while observing the surroundings in silence. As he eats, a black cube emerges and is drawn into his hand. He confirms that it can store items in a preserved state and decides it will allow him to keep fresh ice cream indefinitely. He concludes that calling over any star, popular influencer, or OnlyFan models in the future will no longer be a problem, a thought he finds mildly satisfying. He then confirms that this ability followed him through rebirth, even though abilities originally awakened only after the apocalypse. He acknowledges that he still does not fully understand it, but considers it his greatest advantage. Going forward, Chen Nuo plans his next steps, building a safe house, bagging some baddies in it, trying several positions, collecting supplies, weapons, and energy reserves. There is still much to do. A sound came from his phone stating that Little Fairy is calling. Chen Nuo reacts with mild surprise and looks at his phone, which shows an incoming call from Lu Menying. He recalls that after his parents died, Lu Menying appeared at his side like a savior. For a long time, he believed she was his light. He later realized what she truly wanted was the inheritance his parents left behind. Marriage was presented as a condition, along with demands for property, a large city apartment in her name, and an expensive bride price. In the end, he even agreed to sell the ancestral home to meet her demands. When the apocalypse arrived, Chen Nuo risked everything to protect her. She, aiming for a stronger backer, sold him off without hesitation. He was reduced to trade goods and did not even retain a complete corpse. The memory lingers briefly, then fades. The phone still vibrates in his hand with Lu Menying's name displayed. He looks at Lu Menying's name on the phone and smiles faintly, deciding it is time to settle the old account. A high-end hotel exterior is shown. Inside, Lu Menying steps onto the floor in slippers, answering the call casually. She claims she only went out with friends, lost a necklace by accident, and is now back at the hotel. Chen Nuo tells her that since something was lost, a new one can be bought. He decides to buy not just one but 10, suggesting she can wear them alternately. Lu Menying shows surprise and questions his sudden generosity. She hears that he made a small profit from virtual currency. She warns that such things are often scams. Chen Nuo states that whether it is a scam or not, he plans to make real money from it, and will even borrow capital to invest more. Lu Menying comforts him as he proposes a loan, stating that the loan requires a witness. He mentions that once it is done, she will receive 5% as a fee. She then ends the call, telling him to wait. A man asked her if she will be washing that for too long before starting. She reassures him that she will be ready soon, and asks him to wait. While seducing the old geezer, she calculates that one night with him is worth 50,000, enough for a simple signature for Chen Nuo. She considers it easy money and sees no risk in it. The call ends, and Chen Nuo lowers his phone. Chen Nuo smiles to himself and says that Lu Mening will do. He notes that it is time to build his fortress. At the selected building site, Chen Nuo explains that within 1 month, the entire structure must be transformed into an impenetrable fortress. The requirements include bulletproof composite glass for all windows, with invisible anti-theft mesh, reinforced concrete walls, external flame retardation, and earthquake resistance of at least level 8. He adds that the entire roof must be fitted with solar panels and an independent power generation system, along with an independent ecological circulation system with 72 hours of oxygen supply, explosion-proof doors, and entry protection using biometric recognition and mechanical locks. The engineer listens while holding the blueprint and reacts in shock. He sums it up as converting the whole building into a disaster-resistant survival house within 1 month, and mutters that this client seems to have watched too many sci-fi movies. Chen Nuo reminds him that his resume claims experience in building top-level bunkers for billionaires. The engineer hesitates and points out that the requirements are extremely high-end, and the budget will also be extreme. Chen Nuo presents the payment terms: a 1 million deposit, the rest on completion. Hearing the final price, the engineer nearly chokes on his own shock, briefly realizing he may have just met the fastest route to financial freedom. Both lean in and seal the deal with a handshake. Chen Nuo adds some conditions: materials and quality take priority, the price will not drop. Each convinced the other is either a genius or slightly unhinged. As the agreement is finalized, each side confident the other will not escape the final payment. Later, Chen Nuo reflects that food, medicine, and daily supplies will be manageable once the fortress is ready. But the true danger in the apocalypse will not come from disasters alone. It will come from people. Cold weapons are easy to acquire, but firearms that can deliver fatal force will be harder to secure. He checks his phone while walking through the street and sends out a message to arrange purchases and a meeting place. A reply arrives asking how much he wants to buy and where to meet. At night he was going for the meeting, but suddenly, hurried footsteps echo behind him. A group closes in, from a narrow night street where a girl stumbles while running, her breathing uneven as panic catches up with her. Her pursuers close in from both sides of the alley, cutting off her escape. One of them taunts her for running into their territory, while another steps forward with clear intent to capture her. Cornered, she turns back toward Chen Nuo in desperation and asks for help. Chen Nuo glances at her, registering recognition. She was the hottest baddie in his college. She was a baddie worth smashing, yet he wonders how she ended up in a place like this. The gang steps closer, one of them pointing at the pair, as if the outcome is already decided. The girl is grabbed roughly by her hair. A threat follows immediately, demanding money and making it clear that escape without payment is not an option. Behind the thug, 2 others watch with ugly amusement, already discussing how she will pay if she has no cash. From the darkness, Chen Luo steps forward and tells them to let her go. The gang briefly shifts its attention to him, surprised that someone would interfere at this moment. The man loses patience and decides to cripple Chen Nuo first. Lifting his hand to strike, Chen Nuo's eyes narrow as he tracks the incoming attack. He twists his body and evades the strike, flipping past the attacker as the punch cuts through empty space. Chen Nuo clamps both hands around the attacker's wrist. The attacker screams as his hand is crushed in Chen Nuo's grip. Chen Nuo surges forward in a blur. His fist slams into the attacker holding the girl, sending debris flying as the impact lands between them. A system notification appears, detecting intense negative states including fear, pain, and anger, followed immediately by confirmation that the negative emotion harvesting system has activated successfully. Chen Nuo stands amid the settling dust, registering that this system did not exist in his previous life. The man grabbing the girl warned Chen Nuo if he moved then this girl will be dead meat for sure. Before he can do something, from darkness a man throws brick toward him. The brick landed directly on the man, making others shocked. Chen Nuo steps forward in surprise as he notices another man appear. Attention shifts to the newcomer. The new arrival calls out the group for targeting the girl. One attacker rushes in with a raised metal bat intent on striking, while another follows close behind. The newcomer dodges the bat whereas Chen Nuo blocks the attack with his forearm at close range, stopping the blow. The newcomer counters immediately with a direct kick that sends the attacker backward. Seeing this, Chen Nuo was shocked as the newcomer just saved him from a attack. In return, Chen Nuo counters a strike coming for the newcomer. The newcomer shifts aside and avoids the attack with minimal movement. Together they beat the whole group, becoming the absolute savior of the girl. Chen Nuo stands with a steady gaze and tells the remaining men to leave at once. A system interface appears, listing fear, panic, severe pain, despair, and humiliation, confirming that the negative emotion threshold has been exceeded for the first time and that space expansion permission has been unlocked. The system urges continued harvesting for growth. The remaining thugs clutch their heads and flee in disorder, leaving their fallen companions behind. Chen Nuo notes that harvesting negative emotions works in practice. The girl addresses Chen Nuo by name and thanks him for appearing in time. He asks if she is hurt and reaches down to help her up. He places his jacket over her shoulders and tells her to put it on. on. She thanks him again and says she must leave first, wishing him safety. The newcomer steps forward and introduces himself to Chen Nuo, stating that saving someone so easily deserves a proper introduction. Chen Nuo confirms Mu Qiang's identity and states that he is the buyer arranged for the meeting. Mu Qiang reacts with surprise at the coincidence. Mu Qiang suddenly lunges forward with a flashy move and announces an exaggerated attack. Chen Nuo calmly states a number in response, leaving Mu Qiang momentarily confused. A notification appears showing detection of intense negative emotions, confusion, bewilderment, and embarrassment. Chen Nuo lightly remarks that this also counts, and starts shouting about Pagoda. Suppresses River Demon, he just tried to lighten the mood, through some jokes. Mu Qiang complains that Chen Nuo's joke is ruthless and tells him to follow, leading the way into the night. After some time at the meeting location, Mu Qiang presents a wooden case containing a pistol and bullets, explaining that the Russian-made gun is sturdy and durable but the ammunition is limited and should be used sparingly. Chen Nuo inspects the gun and acknowledges the quality. Mu Qiang, pleased with Chen Nuo's earlier performance, offers a so-called friendship price and suggests treating this deal as the start of a friendship. Chen Nuo remarks that Mu Qiang's handling is professional, and then proposes additional conditions: free suppressors, a warranty card, and an extra box of bullets. Mu Qiang is stunned, and questions whether Chen Nuo understands what a friendship price means. He calculates the cost mentally, and realizes Chen Nuo is asking for terms close to robbery. Mu Qiang fumes inwardly at being treated like an appliance store clerk, while being drained dry. His frustration spikes. A system notification appears, detecting intense negative emotions, shock, heartache, and speechlessness. Chen Zhao calmly dismisses the issue, and states that if the terms are not accepted, they can revert to the original price, then proceeds to transfer the money. The transaction is completed, and the firearm is secured. Chen Nu notes that the immediate task is finished. The setting shifts to a brightly lit high-rise, with a luxury dining room inside, where a hot chick in a red dress stands alone by the large window at night. She clenches her hand tightly, displeased that Chen Nuo has arrived late. When Chen Nuo appears, she confronts him for making her wait, and mentions being forced to stand for a long time. Chen Nuo holds her by the waist and reassures her that it was only a formality, and that he would never deceive her. Scene shifts at Zhang Yang's gang. At the table, the leader sits with 2 guards behind him and praises her decisiveness, interpreting her conduct as confirmation of her value. She places a contract on the table and moves it forward. Zhang Yang became quite confident in his control of the situation. He smokes calmly, and states that if she hesitates, she will have to settle the matter with her body instead. She raises her head without protest. The contract is described as an indentured servitude agreement, framed as protection for her safety. Chen Nuo, now seated at a distance, confirms the process is proceeding smoothly. After the contract is finalized, scene shifts outside another building. The engineer assures that the entire structure is reinforced to military standards and can withstand extreme conditions. Payment is exchanged, and both parties acknowledge the quality of the arrangement. Later, Chen Nuo sits alone on a sofa in his quiet room, looking at a broadcast reporting unprecedented solar flare activity. The report warns of continuous extreme heat affecting the world on a global scale. It states about violent solar flare activity, warning that temperatures in many regions will break historical records, and urging citizens to prepare for protection. Chen Nuo wipes down the pistol with a cloth, clearing the last traces of oil and dust. The weapon is secured in a steady grip. As the warning continues in the background, he raises the gun beside his face and checks it one final time. He confirms internally that the moment has arrived. He lowers the weapon and steps forward, embers drifting through the air around him. The heat in the surroundings intensifies. His gaze sharpens as his eyes begin to glow faintly red under the rising temperature. From inside the building, he looks out through the window at the outside world. The sky burns with a massive blazing solar dominating the horizon, casting the city in crimson light. Due to the impact of a catastrophic solar flare eruption, Earth's ionosphere is experiencing violent turbulence, and extreme heat anomalies are being reported globally, with daytime highs projected to reach a scorching 45 degrees Celsius, so citizens are strongly advised to implement heat stroke prevention measures and avoid all non-essential outdoor travel during midday hours. Chen Nuo looks out as the temperature begins to climb, with the thought that this is only the beginning. The city streets are bathed in harsh sunlight, and a woman wipes sweat from her face before complaining that it is already unbearably hot, even though it is only morning, and wondering how long the heat wave will last. At a market stall, a vendor shouts to the neighbors that the heat is absolutely lethal, that rumors say it will keep spiking all next week, that supplies are critically low, and that water and power rationing are coming soon, urging everyone to stock up now because this is his absolute last batch. He wipes his face and thinks that the heat wave is practically throwing money at him, and that he would be a complete idiot not to seize the chance to make a killing. A woman asks the boss if he is really selling the watermelons for that much, and requests a better price, while another woman examines a melon nearby. The vendor stares with flushed cheeks and hearts in his eyes, greeting the women. He tells them that the melons are sweet as honey, and offers to slice one up for them to taste in exchange of their melons, then suggests that if they buy 2, He will give them 20% off and throw in a free pack of tissues. The vendor eagerly suggests that if they get too hot at night, they can come over to his place, while holding several watermelons and smiling at them. One of the women refuses and says they will just take one, but the vendor urges them to buy more and stock up while they can, warning that with this heat, there may be no stock left tomorrow. An elderly man asks the vendor if he could lower the price of the water, standing beside a younger man. The vendor bluntly refuses, saying it is a small business with strict margins and absolutely no bargaining. He turns away, holding a box. As Chen Nuo walks past behind him, nearby Chen Nuo clicks his tongue and mutters Li Dafu's name. He recalls a memory in which, inside the shop, he crouches down near the vendor, reaching towards something on the floor. The vendor suddenly shouts for everyone to look, accusing a broke loser of stealing from him and claiming he caught him red-handed. Chen Nuo insists he did not steal anything and says he was just trying to put it back, but the vendor demands how he expects anyone to believe that, calls him kind-hearted sarcastically, and threatens to drag him to the police station if he does not pay for the damages. People gather around, saying he is young yet chose to be a thief, wondering how his parents raised him, and pointing out that he is not saying anything, which they take as an admission of guilt. Chen Nuo lowers his head and weakly insists that he did not steal. While in present, Chen Nuo steps forward through the crowd and stops in front of that vendor's stall, drawing attention as people behind him look on. He turns his head slightly and looks back over his shoulder, his expression calm. A price tag marked at 50 yuan per onion is shown. Chen Nuo questions whether the chips are made of solid gold or meant to ward off heat stroke, asking why they are being sold for such a high price. The vendor stiffens, sweat running down his face as he turns his head sharply. The system interface flashes, indicating intense negative emotion and disdain. The vendor snaps that if Chen Nuo cannot afford it, he should not touch it, warning that if the goods are damaged, he must pay. Another alert flashes, indicating intense negative emotion and irritation. Chen Nuo calmly asks the vendor or say Boss Li whether hoarding all these so-called treasures lets him sleep soundly at night, and whether he is not worried someone might steal them. Boss Li freezes for a moment, saying nothing. He then explodes in anger, demanding to know who Chen Nuo is cursing, calling him a spineless punk, and asking if the heat has fried his brain. Chen Nuo tells him to calm down and casually asks whether he has been suffering from insomnia, vivid dreams, severe liver fire, night sweats, and fatigue. Boss Li scoffs and admits that actually, yes, a little, then suddenly stiffens and asks if something is wrong with his warehouse. Chen Nuo grabs Boss Li and examines him, clicking his tongue and saying that this is exactly as he thought, pointing out that Boss Li's yin energy is pitch black and that his eyes are unfocused. Boss Li reels back as Chen Nuo concludes that this is a classic case of kidney deficiency. Boss Li explodes in anger, cursing Chen Nuo and his entire family and telling him to get lost as he swings his arm at him. Chen Nuo calmly advises Boss Li to take care of himself, saying that excessive anger harms the body, especially with his condition, and warns that if he is not careful, he will send himself to an early grave. A coin flicks through the air and lands with a sharp sound as an interface flashes, detecting intense negative emotion and rage. Later at night, a black cat runs past the entrance of a building. A dark thought of Chen Nuo appears, stating that in his past life he suffered in silence and let others trample over him, but in this life he will take everything back with interest. He stands alone in front of the vendor's warehouse, recalling that the system mentioned it could expand his capacity, and that the points he just obtained arrived at the perfect time. Another interface appears, indicating that negative emotion points have been consumed. A system notification appears, stating that storage space expansion is complete, and the capacity has increased to 200 cubic meters. Dark energy surges, as Chen Nuo raises his hand and opens storage space. Chen Nuo looks ahead calmly, as the power settles, daylight filters through tree leaves, and birds chirp softly. Boss Li suddenly stumbles out from the bushes, staring ahead in shock as a woman walks past without noticing him. Inside the store, Boss Li freezes, sweat pouring down his face. He mutters in disbelief before breaking down and screaming, demanding where his stock is and who did this. Surveillance footage plays on a screen, showing Boss Li clutching his head and shouting, while a system message appears, indicating a surge in negative emotion. Chen Nuo sits back in a chair and watches it, calmly drinking from a can. Boss Li runs forward in a frenzy, shouting that someone stole his stock and ordering them to get out, his rage exploding as the scene cuts off. Boss Li lets out a long hoarse scream as he flails amid the mess, shouting in pain and fury. He stares at the empty space and breaks down, unable to believe that everything is gone overnight. People around him question whether all the goods vanished in one night, accuse him of staging it to raise prices, and complain that the supermarket is completely empty and they do not know what to do now. Two women whisper that someone saw a black shadow drifting inside last night and wonder if the place is haunted. Boss Li snaps back in panic, denying it and shouting that there is no way it is haunted. System notifications appear in succession, detecting intense negative emotions, rage, fear, and suspicion. Chen Nuo stands among the crowd, calmly noting that Boss Li is becoming a very stable source of emotional value. He opens a bag of chips, picks one up, and decides it is time to spice things up and give Boss Li a little extra stimulation. He eats the chip and comments that it tastes good. Behind him, Boss Li suddenly freezes, glares forward, and recognizes the familiar packaging, shouting that it is his stock. Chen Nuo casually holds up a bag of chips and asks Boss Lee whether the chips are made of gold or cure heatstroke, questioning why they are sold at such a high price. He then remarks that Boss Lee hoards all these so-called treasures, and asks whether he can really sleep at night, without worrying that someone might steal them. Boss Lee lunges forward in rage, grabs Chen Nuo by the collar, and demands to know where he got the chips, accusing him of stealing the stock and daring to act so arrogantly. Chen Nuo remains calm, and says that Boss Lee seems to be getting emotional, and asks whether he has any evidence. He adds that spouting nonsense without proof comes with consequences, then points out that Boss Lee's shop is completely clean with not a single chip left, and casually asks whether Boss Lee wants the rest of the bag. Boss Lee shouts that Chen Nuo cursed him yesterday, that the stock vanished overnight, and that Chen Nuo is standing there eating chips, insisting that if he did not steal them, then someone else must have. System alert appears, detecting intense negative emotion and rage. Chen Nuo responds that chips are sold everywhere, and asks since when Boss Lee has the right to claim ownership, calling on the surrounding neighbors to judge whether Boss Lee lost his inventory and is now trying to pin it on him. People in the crowd react, saying the chips can be bought anywhere, while others point out that Boss Lee complained about prices yesterday and the shop is empty today, calling it a suspicious coincidence. Chen Nuo calmly tells Boss Lee that if he does not believe him, he is free to search his house, promising to pay tenfold if a single item from the shop is found, but warning that if nothing turns up, the backup generator behind Boss Lee's store will belong to him. Boss Lee leans in close and snarls that he will search Chen Nuo's place and see how long he can keep up the act. Chen Nuo remains unbothered, while Boss Lee thinks that at best he will find the stolen goods, and at worst, Chen Nuo is delusional if he thinks he can take the generator. Boss Lee storms off with several people following behind him. They enter Chen Nuo's residence, and voices remark that the place is unexpectedly luxurious, that Chen Nuo really kept his wealth hidden, and question when he got so much money. Boss Lee throws his arms up in excitement as he looks around, then starts checking the room. He stares at a hanging suit, then opens a refrigerator filled with drinks, jars, cakes, and fresh meat. He opens a safe and freezes at the sight of neatly stacked gold bars. His eyes widen as he peers inside, sweating heavily. Chen Nuo calmly tells Boss Lee that he has already seen enough, and asks whether he would like a crowbar to check under the floorboards as well. Boss Lee panics and hurriedly says there is no need, claiming he will go ask around somewhere else. Chen Nuo grabs Boss Lee by the collar and reminds him about the generator he promised. A system notification appears, detecting intense negative emotion and embarrassment. Chen Nuo points out that there are witnesses and reminds Boss Lee that he would not try to welch on a bet. Boss Lee scratches his head awkwardly and tries to laugh it off, asking what generator Chen Nuo is talking about and telling him to step back and let it go. Chen Nuo smiles and replies that when Boss Lee was busy framing him earlier, he did not see Boss Lee offering to take a step back either. A system notification appears, detecting intense negative emotion and impatience. Someone in the crowd remarks that Boss Lee is going back on his word just like that, while another says he has zero integrity and that it is no wonder he got robbed. Boss Lee explodes in anger, calling Chen Nuo shameless and saying he clearly does not want to give him any face. Boss Lee swings his arm at Chen Nuo, but Chen Nuo catches his hand mid-air. A sharp cracking sound follows as Boss Lee screams, clutching his hand and crying out in pain. A system notification appears, detecting intense negative emotion and pain. Boss Lee desperately shouts that he will move the generator immediately, and that he is going right now. Chen Nuo calmly warns him to make it quick, saying that once the temperature spikes later, Boss Lee may not even be able to step outside, and thinks that power rationing will start in just a few days. Asking what Boss Lee plans to do without a generator, another system notification appears, detecting intense negative emotions including humiliation, pain, and fear. After a while, a phone on the table lights up with an incoming call. On the screen, Lu Mengyang angrily points and says that people have been coming to her non-stop for the past 2 days, treating her like a loan shark. Chen Nuo looks down at the phone, and she says that she did all he asked by signing the papers, questioning why they are still going after her. She demands that Chen Nuo tell her the truth, and asking why the loan sharks are now focusing on her instead of him. Chen Nuo asks why she never trusts him, and saying he gave up everything for her. He continues that he gave her his whole heart, and says it hurts to hear her talk like this. Chen Nuo thinks that those perverts from Dahai Gang is even more impatient than he expected. He asks Lu Mengyang what the Dahai Gang said and whether they already know her address. Lu Mengyang replies that they do not have her address yet, and that she took side streets to shake them off, but angrily warns him not to play tricks on her. Chen Nuo tells her she is overthinking it, and suggests she may have mistaken them for someone else. He sets the phone down on the table. A meal sits in front of him, neatly arranged and untouched. Lu Mengyang stares at her phone in silence, stunned. She asks how he still has supplies like this. Chen Nuo calmly eats and drinks, saying this is only the tip of the iceberg, and that he has plenty more where that came from. Lu Mengyang leans back, looking at her phone, thinking that the scorching heat has dragged on for days, supplies are reserved for the wealthy, and wondering how he managed to get his hands on all of this. Chen Nuo drinks from a can and remarks that nothing hits the spot like this in such sweltering heat. He takes a bite of salmon. Lu Mengyang reacts in shock at the sight of it, and says she is dying of envy. She lies back, overheated and restless, and asks whether he still has enough food over there. Chen Nuo continues eating calmly. Lu Mengyang says that being alone there scares her, and that she keeps feeling like someone is still lurking nearby. She hesitates, then asks if she can stay with him for a few days. She adds that she can keep him company. Chen Nuo pauses, then says it is going to get even hotter soon and that going out will be too much trouble right now, reminding her that he always told her never to give out her home address and that she had always been secretive and never let him visit before. He then tells her to send him the address and says he will swing by and pick her up tonight once it cools down. Lu Mengyang laughs it off, says that was ancient history, and insists things are different now, adding that if he does not keep her safe, then who will? She agrees and says she will send the address over. Chen Nuo tells her to stay home and wait for him and not run anywhere. Lu Mengyang lounges on the bed, thinking that once he arrives, she will give him a little treat and keep him right on cue. Chen Nuo recalls that she used to act so high and mighty that she would not even let him pass the main gate. Yet now she is handing over her apartment number just to get a bite to eat. Chen Nuo's expression turns cold when he hears doorbell. Outside the door, a woman pounds loudly and calls for Chen Nuo to open up. Chen Nuo opens the door with a faint smile and greets Auntie Wang, asking what she needs. She remarks that the air conditioner is broken, and the poor child is about to pass out from the heat, saying they are neighbors and should look out for each other. She tries to enter in Chen Nuo's house. Chen Nuo forced her back and then reminds her that when he was little and went downstairs to collect plastic bottles, she pointed at him and called him trash, and that she even had security chase him off like a stray dog, asking whether she now suddenly remembers they are neighbors. She shouts that it was all so many years ago and berates him for being shameless, heartless, and lacking empathy. Chen Nuo snaps back that empathy must mean letting her in because he has air conditioning. When Chen Nuo shuts the door, Auntie Wang storms forward and slams the door in fury. A system notification appears, detecting intense negative emotion and rage. Chen Nuo stands silently with his head lowered. As the notification fades, he picks up his phone from the table and removes the SIM card. He stands at the desk, holding the phone. As a call labeled Da Hai, or Say Ocean Gang appears on the screen, Chen Nuo answers the call and says that he has Lu Mengyang's address and already sent it over, adding that she lives alone and is an easy target. He lowers the phone and steps toward the balcony. Standing outside, he looks ahead and thinks of Liu Mengyang by name. He then thinks that the show can begin. Chen Nuo turns and walks away. At Lu Mengyang's apartment finally felt like it had an ending in sight. As she adjusted her clothes in front of the mirror, she allowed herself to picture the relief of moving into Chen Nuo, whose name is also Chen Xiao's air-conditioned place, far away from the constant heat and inconvenience. That confidence did not last. Not long after, the knock at her door turned urgent. When she opened it, unfamiliar men were waiting outside. Their leader, Zhang Yang, stepped forward without hesitation, making it clear they had come for one thing: money. Lu Mengyang stiffened as the accusation landed. The debt they demanded was tied to Chen Nuo, or say Chen Xiao, and they expected her to cover it. She tried to explain that Chen Xiao would return soon, that he had supplies, that he could handle it once he arrived, but the moment she reached for her phone, the call failed. The line would not connect, and every second without an answer made the room feel smaller. Zhang Yang did not wait for excuses. He ordered his men to search the apartment for anything valuable, and the sound of things being torn open and overturned forced Lu Mengyang to realize she was no longer in control of the situation. Zhang Yang lounged on the sofa as the gang went through the room. Handbags and jewelry were spread across the coffee table, but he looked unimpressed, calling it meager scraps that would not even cover the interest. Liu stood frozen nearby, watching in fear as they searched. Zhang Yang leaned forward, reminding her that their brothers had come all this way, so they could not leave empty-handed. She tried to stop them, insisting the money was with Chen Xiao, but her words only made Zhang Yang's expression turn colder. She quickly added that Chen Xiao had plenty of supplies and would come to pick her up soon, telling them to wait and demand the money from him. When she called Chen Xiao, the line was unavailable. No one answered. The failed call left her shaken, but she forced herself to try again. Zhang Yang grabbed Liu by the arm and yelled that she was truly stupid, and that Wimp had sold her out. The phone fell, and it was said that when Liu was tricked into signing, he never intended to pay it back. Liu froze and could only say what. Liu screamed for Zhang Yang to let her go, and said he should go find Chen Xiao, because only Chen Xiao had the things he wanted. Liu screamed loudly as Zhang Yang dragged her inside a room, while two other men stood nearby. The door slammed closed, and shocked cries followed as the phone screen cracked. Liu's voice stammered no, then screamed again. In a dim room, Chen Xiao sat with a glass in his hand, while the phone lay on the table. He said that Lu Mengtang had a good taste for the apocalypse's passion. Outside, the building was shown at night. Zhang Yang was seen from behind wearing his shirt. Nearby, Liu cried. A pair of high heels fell to the floor, followed by a hand slamming a cup down. Zhang Yang grabbed Liu and demanded she repeat what she just said about Chen Xiao and what good stuff was at Chen Xiao's place. Liu choked out that there was air conditioning, ice drinks, and lots of food, and that Chen Xiao's home had everything. She told Zhang Yang to go find Chen Xiao because he was the person he should be looking for. Then Liu insisted she really had nothing left. Liu was thrown onto the bed as Zhang Yang noted the air conditioning and supplies and said he had caught a big fish this time. Zhang Yang smirked and said they should go. The door stood shut, with debris scattered on the floor. Liu sat crying, covering her mouth, thinking that Chen Xiao had tricked her and that he would die a horrible death. A quiet city street stretched between tall buildings at night as footsteps hurried down the road. A man was led forward as Auntie Wang pointed out that Chen Xiao lived right there, with air conditioning running all day and plenty to eat and drink, but he was also extremely stingy and would not even share a sip of water. He told Auntie Wang to lead the way, promising benefits once they got the stuff. Auntie Wang thanked him, praised his generosity, and said he could become a big boss. She imagined Chen Xiao to beg for his life, admitted Auntie Wang was wrong, and offered his own home as a place to live. With this man who is brother of Zhang Yang, Auntie Wang smirked, wanting to see how arrogant Chen Xiao could be this time. Zhang Yang's brother watched the building and noted that this kid had something going on. One of the men called out for Yang to watch him kick the door down. Suddenly he cried out in pain. Someone shouted at him for cramping up. A hand clenched tightly as blue sparks crackled around it. They screamed for help. Everyone froze. A broadcast played, repeating that good luck brings joy and love, welcoming good luck, and thriving and reaching the 4 Cs. Electricity surged, and someone cried out about being electrocuted. A screen showed detected intense negative emotions, shock plus 45, panic plus 36, and speechlessness plus 22. Chen Zhao commented that their luck was not bad, since someone stepped onto the protective electric grid with 1 foot. Zhang demanded Chen Xiao stop messing around, said paying back debts was a matter of principle, and ordered him to return the money so it would be even. Auntie Wang shouted back that Chen Xiao had money to renovate but none to pay debts, and questioned how his parents raised him. Chen Xiao sat in a chair holding a green ice cream. He says his apartment is worth 4 million, which more than covers the amount mentioned. He dismisses Lu's debts as unrelated to him. Zhang tries to respond but falters. Chen Xiao says a wise man submits to circumstances while he is in a good mood and warns that he will not stay polite if they keep looking for trouble. He presses a red button. Outside, the electricity surges again and another scream is heard. A man collapses, unable to hold on. More emotion readings appear, and the total negative emotion value exceeds 1000% as rewards are calculated. Zhang, furious, shouts that Chen Xiao will not escape and declares the gang will come after him. Auntie Wang looks up at the building as a red shadow looms overhead. At morning temperature is now 52 degrees Celsius. Later, Chen Xiao relaxes on a couch, calling his drink refreshing, while the TV reports deaths from heatstroke and urges citizens to avoid going out. His phone keeps receiving angry messages in a homeowners group accusing him of being selfish and demanding he come out and explain himself. Chen Xiao looks at the phone and states he is not running a charity. He says he will only exchange resources for equal value and refuses freeloaders. The messages continue, calling him cold-blooded and warning he will die a horrible death. Chen Xiao leans back and reacts to a system notification. The negative emotion value has reached 3000 and a skill upgrade is available. Spatial cut, beginner. The effect is described as creating a microscopic rift in the air that cuts objects within 3 meters. He repeats the skill name, then gestures, producing a cutting arc. He smiles and says things are getting interesting. At night, a car of Dajai gang arrives in front of the building. Lu steps out from the car. Zhang Yang asks Zhang if the Chen Xiao he mentioned lives here. Zhang confirms that Chen Xiao lives in the innermost building. Lu clings to Zhang Yang, and he calls her baby, saying she must be heartbroken leading a team to raid her ex. She continues that her brother Zhang Yang is right, and now her heart only holds him, then dismisses Chen Xiao as a useless piece of trash. She thinks about Chen Xiao and says tonight is his death date. 2 men shout to their big brothers. One of them is Boss Li, who says they have Chen Xiao, and that they should hurry to the inn to teach him a lesson and block his escape route. Zhang Yang tells everyone to help him catch Chen Xiao, and says he will share some of the stuff in his room with them. Boss Li thanks big brother Zhang Yang, and says to come this way because they know a shortcut. Nearby, a group is being dragged along, and after a while Boss Li calls out to big brother, saying this is a misunderstanding, and that they are on the same side. The man questions him, saying the whole building now belongs to Zhang Yang. Auntie Wang shouts that they cannot do this and says they did not provoke them. Someone runs away and admits he was wrong, saying he should not have been greedy for those scraps, and says everything is gone and there is no way to survive now. He also says he was truly blind, and asks how he could trust this bunch of beasts. Zhang Yang stands with his group as 2 men holding weapons face forward. A crowd gathers in front of the building. A couch is thrown out, and lands with a loud crash. Inside, Chen Xiao sits casually and says everyone is looking for him. Zhang Yang calls Chen Xiao a kid, says death is imminent, and tells him to hand over the supplies and he will leave his corpse intact. Chen Xiao says his parents did not teach him to disturb people while they are eating, and calls it very rude. Zhang Yang charges forward while shouting for his men to cripple him. Chen Xiao is surrounded by multiple attackers rushing in with weapons. Chen Xiao lunges into the group and strikes downward, smashing someone into the ground. One attacker swings a cleaver overhead toward Chen Xiao. Chen Xiao throws a small canister, and it bursts into a large cloud of smoke. Zhang Yang coughs in the smoke and says it is tear gas, then orders a retreat. Chen Xiao moves through the smoke as a weapon slams into the ground behind him. Chen Xiao watches as someone came in view. The other person comments that the trouble seems minor, and that Chen Xiao's skills are not bad. Chen Xiao questions why Mukong is here. Mukong leans against a wall, holding a canister, and asks if Chen Xiao still wants the supplies. Mukong mocks him for drinking iced water at a time like this, and says Chen Xiao is living comfortably. Chen Xiao tells him to talk and asks why he is here, saying this territory is not on Mukong's side. Mukong says Lu Haifeng's men have been stealing his business lately, and that he has been watching him for days. Mukong says he saw Chen Xiao coming this way and followed to take a look, not expecting Chen Xiao to be coming for him. He adds that supplies have been scarce for a long time, yet Chen Xiao has quite a stockpile, and asks if Chen Xiao could not manage that without some special channels. Chen Xiao asks what Mukong is trying to say. Mukong tells Chen Xiao not to misunderstand, and says he is not trying to pry. He says Lu Haifeng, whom you know as Zhang Yang, has been stockpiling a lot of purified water recently, and he wants to cooperate with Chen Xiao to get that water. Mukong says he is familiar with the underground business layout, and that Chen Xiao should find a way to get the water. He says once it is done, he will store it here first, then find a way to sell it. Chen Xiao thinks that as the temperature rises, water resources are becoming a needed hard currency. Mukong says cooperation is fine. Chen Xiao demands a 9-to-1 profit split, leaving only one part for Mukong. Mukong is stunned and questions the split. System tells, strong negative emotion detected, shock plus 40. Chen Xiao says that if Mukong is not willing, then there is nothing to talk about. Mukong suddenly clings to Chen Xiao's leg and begs for an 8-to-2 split, saying he needs profit too. Mukong thinks Chen Xiao is too confident to be ordinary, and decides Chen Xiao is the most suitable choice. Chen Xiao agrees that 8-to-2 works, but adds that Mukong must let him have first pick of any new goods in the future, and sell whatever Chen Xiao leaves behind. Chen Xiao sits on a couch drinking, while Mukang faces him. Chen Xiao says the deal is set and tells Mukang to first figure out the stronghold structure and personnel distribution. Mukong and Chen Xiao watch Zhaoyang's stronghold from above. Mukong explains the trading area is in front, and people shorten their water supply by buying or exchanging goods. A group of armed men patrols below. Nearby, a crowd gathers around several women. As Mukang explains, there are also captured women kept to provide special services to upper management. Liu is shown being restrained by men in suits. Mukang watches Liu standing alone at an industrial site. Mukang tells the water storage area is in the back, and the exact location still hasn't been found. Chen Xiao tells Mukang he will sneak in to look around, create chaos on the perimeter after seeing the signal, and draw away the main force. Mukang questions how he will move the water alone, and Chen Xiao says he has his ways. Chen Xiao, dressed in dark clothes, walks through the facility at night. A guard stops Chen Xiao, saying he looks unfamiliar and demands his ID. Chen Xiao shows a card and says the boss sent him to count the water stock. The man challenges him, saying counting the water stock is childish. System notification appears. Detected negative emotion, mockery plus 5. Chen Xiao thinks that before, spatial cutting was used to cut apples, and now something different will be cut. Chen Xiao launches an attack. The man is struck from behind. Blood spilling and system notification appears. Detected strong negative emotion, horror plus 50, pain plus 50. A muscular attacker with a gun stands over on the ground, then raises the weapon to strike. Before he can do something, Chen Xiao attacks and cuts the gunman's hand in midair. System notice appears. Detected strong negative emotion, fear plus 100, despair plus 100. Someone reacts to the gunshots, shouting that an intruder has snuck in and ordering everyone to keep up. Multiple men rush across the ground, moving in groups with weapons. Chen Xiao appears behind a wall, half hidden in shadow, watching closely. Then, an unknown hand reaches toward him. The group continues searching near a large storage tank in nearby buildings. Li Yu raises a finger to her lips and signals, shh, as she sits beside Chen Xiao in a dim corner. She asks why he is there. Li Yu kneels on the ground and says she was captured, asking if he was captured too. Chen Xiao asks if she knows where the water stockpile is. Li Yu answers that she has already figured out the layout and will take him there, and the two move together. When other men were searching for Chen Xiao on another side of the wall, Chen Xiao and Li Yu move together, through a narrow area inside the facility. In the distance, several armed men spot movement and raise their weapons, shouting for everyone to move quickly. Li Yu tells Chen Xiao to follow her as there's no other surveillance cameras. When they reach to the place where all water supplies are hidden, Chen Xiao stops and tells Li Yu to go find a place to hide and wait for him to come. He reaches toward a metal door and places his hand on it. After a while, blast erupts, throwing debris into the air. One attacker swings his weapon with force, but the strike is interrupted as the situation turns chaotic. Li Yu peeks from behind the wall and worries that Chen Xiao has been gone too long. A violent explosion erupts nearby, sending debris flying. Li Yu rushes forward and grabs a chunk of rubble, lifting it up defensively as smoke spreads. A shadow appears in the smoke. She thinks it is Zhang Yang's men, so she tries to throw the chunk of rubble at him. But Chen Xiao appears. He tells her it is handled and urges her to leave with him. A gunshot rings out into the air. Li Yu raises a finger to her lips, signaling for silence, while Chen Xiao stays alert. From above, Mukong watches and comments that Chen Xiao is doing well, as burning projectiles fall and the facility catches fire. On the rooftop, someone yells that it is an incendiary bomb and tells everyone to run. Chen Xiao and Li Yu run down an alley while flames spread behind them. Liu appears and calls out to Chen Xiao, begging him to take her with him and saying they used to be lovers. She says she will not blame him for using her name for loans, but Chen Xiao rejects her and tells her she does not understand the situation. Liu cries and describes being forced to serve people, being beaten when resisting, and being brought back when trying to escape. She says she has nowhere else to go and begs to live with him. Chen Xiao accuses Liu for humiliating him, letting others bully him, and leading to Zhang Yang trying to kill him. He asks if she ever thought this day would come. Chen Xiao thinks that in his past life, when Liu dismembered him, he wondered if she ever thought this day would come. Liu is thrown backward as Chen Xiao lashes out, saying her acting is still too lousy. Chen Xiao tells Li Yu that they should leave. She hesitates and looks back while Chen Xiao walks away, and Liu remains behind on the ground. Liu sits up and angrily tells Chen Xiao he is ruthless, and that if he will not let her live, then no one will have it easy. System message appears, stating that intense negative emotion has been detected, with hatred at plus 999. Zhang Yang yells for water, asking where the water is and whether their water is okay. They go ahead as Zhang Yang sees a message written on the wall that says, "Boss, I took the water, and next time I will take yours life." Zhang Yang screams, demanding to know who did it. Lu appears and tells Zhang Yang that it was Chen Xiao, and that she tried to stop him but got injured, and that Chen Xiao said Zhang Yang was just trash. She says Zhang Yang is unworthy of possessing these resources. Then seductively she warns that Chen Xiao also wants to kill all of them. Zhang Yang orders everyone to follow him to the south gate and slaughter that bastard. Scene shifts and Mukang mocks about quite the commotion. Chen Xiao tells Zhang Yang that he moves fast. Zhang Yang points forward and orders them to go get him. Chen Xiao throws his firelight. Flames spread across the area as several men charge ahead through the fire. Zhang Yang shouts that he will make sure Chen Xiao dies. Chen Xiao thanks Boss Lu and says he will take these emotion points. System message shows intense negative emotion detected, and then says, negative emotion points reach 3,000, and a new skill has been unlocked, spatial barrier. Scene cuts to Chen Xiao's building. Mu Kang cheers, saying it was too awesome, and says, old dog Zhang Yang is probably tearing his house apart right now. At a table full of food, Li Yu tells Chen Xiao that she is really thankful, and that if it were not for him she does not know how much longer she would be stuck in that hellhole. Chen Xiao tells her they are old classmates, and there is no need to be so polite. Li Yu says it is not just politeness, and that he made her feel there are still people in this world worth trusting. Mukong praises Chen Xiao, saying that the hero saved the beauty and the move was brilliant, then asks him to give them the lowdown on how he did it. At this point Mukong already knows Chen Xiao's gonna smash her. Mukong say that emptying the whole reservoir, is it some kind of magic? Chen Xiao says he has his ways, and tells him to focus on thinking about how to safely sell all that water. Chen Xiao asks that after graduation he didn't saw her. She says after graduation her family have gone through an accident. Her eyes tightened as she said her parents went missing at the same time. Chen Xiao and Mukong listened. The three of them gathered in the room while flames flickered nearby. Someone shouted in shock that it was on fire outside. They rushed to the balcony and saw the building surrounded by raging fire. A voice from the screen cried for help and begged someone to save the children. Mukang slammed the table and shouted that it was Zhang Yang's doing, asking if that bastard was trying to drive everyone to death. Li Yu asked if they should do something. Zhang Yang was said to want to use morality and the lives of innocents as a rope to bind Chen Xiao, while Chen Xiao said he was long past being that rotten do-gooder and would rather get strangled to death. Zhang Yang yelled at Chen Xiao to see how long he could hide, warning that if he did not come out, the whole area would be burned to ash. To see how long Chen Xiao's turtle shell could last, Zhang said the boss was wise, because even if they did not burn to death, the smoke would kill them. Zhang Yang stared through the fire and muttered that Chen Xiao wanted to fight him, then be on it. Outside, flames raged through the streets. Inside, Mukong warns Chen Xiao that they cannot keep going like this, because the heat will spread inside, and even if they do not burn to death, they will be roasted dry, or run out of oxygen. Chen Xiao thinks that in a high-temperature apocalypse, he should not have been stupid enough to forget installing the highest standard fire protection system in the safe house. He presses a red button. A machine on the outside sprays out a powerful stream, putting out the surrounding flames. Several objects are scattered through the air. Mukong stares at the screen in shock and yells that it is nano-grade aerogel, and that this is military-grade. Zhang Yang watches the burning building and mocks it as a death struggle. A man swings an object violently. Zhang Yang's men kept pushing forward as they complained the fuel was running out and the mist was too wicked. Chen Xiao appeared holding a megaphone and taunted Zhang Yang, offering a glass of ice water to cool down. A system panel showed strong negative emotion detected, with anger rising. Zhang Yang decided that killing Chen Xiao would be too easy. He decides to take over this house. Zhang Yang shouts angrily, telling Chen Xiao to get out. He yells at him to come out and look at the people around him, accusing him of causing everyone suffering. Auntie Wang also calls Chen Xiao a little brat who offended boss Lu Zhangyang and dragged everyone else down with him, demanding that he come out immediately. Mukong angrily curses Lu Zhangyang as a bastard and declares that if things reach the worst point, they will rush out and fight him to the death. Chen Xiao realizes that Zhangyang is trying to blackmail him by using other people's lives. He understands that in this world, being soft-hearted is no different from suicide. Zhangyang grabs an old man by the collar and shouts that if Chen Xiao wants to keep hiding like a coward, he will start with the old man. The old man Grandpa Wang warns Zhangyang that if he continues doing this, he will die a horrible death. Chen Xiao recognizes the hostage and identifies him as Grandpa Wang. He recalls when in his previous life Grandpa Wang kneels beside Chen Xiao lying on the ground while flames burn around the area. Grandpa Wang urges Chen Xiao to survive, saying that as long as he remains alive, there is still hope. Chen Xiao tells Mukong to stay inside and protect you, explaining that he is going to settle the score with boss Lu Zhangyang. Outside, he then declares that the grievance between him and Zhang Yang has nothing to do with anyone else. Zhang Yang mocks Chen Xiao for finally coming out of hiding, and asks if he wants to play the hero. He adds that if Chen Xiao pays back the money, hands over the water and leaves his life behind, he might consider letting the others go. Chen Xiao calmly states that he has no interest in that. He states that fighting and killing is boring, and that it also damages one's karma. He then tells Zhang Yang that since he once started out running a casino, they should settle the matter, using the method Zhang Yang is best at. Chen Xiao proposes making a bet. He explains that if Zhang Yang wins, everything Chen Xiao owns will belong to him. But if Chen Xiao wins, Zhang Yang will release Old Man Wang and leave the area. Zhang Yang laughs and agrees. They decide to bet on the size of the points, with one round determining life or death. Chen Xiao prepares his cup and calmly declares that he bets on big. The situation is described as a god of gamblers showdown, as the two stand facing each other. Zhang Yang quickly shakes the cup and slams it down with force. Both cups slam down onto the ground at the same time. Zhang Yang presses his finger against the cup and lifts it, revealing the dice inside. 3 sixes appear. His men immediately cheer loudly, shouting that the boss will win. Zhang Yang laughs proudly and declares that it is 3 sixes, a supreme result, and that Chen Xiao has lost. Chen Xiao calmly tells him not to rush because the winner has not been decided yet. He then lifts his own cup. The dice shoot out with force. As they fall, sharp streaks flash across them, and when they land on the ground, all 3 dice split cleanly in half. Chen Xiao points out that Zhang Yang's dice skills do not seem very good. The broken dice pieces lie scattered on the ground. The onlookers stare in shock and wonder why the dice are all split in half. Chen Xiao explains that the total points are 21, which is bigger than Zhang Yang's supreme roll. Zhang Yang stands there in disbelief. Chen Xiao declares that Zhang Yang has lost and orders him to release the man. Zhang Yang, shocked and angry, accuses Chen Xiao of cheating. The system detects a strong negative emotion and reports that anger increases by 500%. Zhang Yang angrily curses Chen Xiao and tells him to go to hell while rushing forward with a knife. Nearby, the tied captives tremble in fear. Chen Xiao remains calm and casually remarks that he will just take the chance to try out a new skill. Zhang Yang swings the knife downward toward Chen Xiao. Chen Xiao dodges the attack and uses smoke. Zhang Yang's men shout in alarm, calling for their boss. Through the smoke, one of them asks if he is alright. Zhang Yang steadies himself and says he is fine, then orders them to find Chen Xiao. Looking ahead, Zhang Yang realizes that Chen Xiao has already moved ahead. Furious, Zhang Yang orders his men to beat Chen Xiao to death. Several gunshots are fired toward the cloud of smoke. Amid the chaos, Zhang Yang shouts in shock and demands to know what is happening as someone rushes forward and attacks. Chen Xiao stands calmly as smoke drifts around him, completely unharmed as it's clear that attacker was Chen Xiao. Zhang Yang prepares a rocket launcher and declares that it does not matter how strong Chen Xiao is, because he cannot possibly dodge this. He fires the missile while shouting for Chen Xiao to die. The missile shoots forward and rushes straight toward Chen Xiao. Zhang Yang shouts that Chen Xiao's inheritance will belong to him. At that moment, the system reports that a spatial barrier has been activated. A blue vortex-like barrier appears in front of Chen Xiao and intercepts the incoming missile. The missile strikes the barrier, but is stopped instantly. The force causes cracks to spread across the missile as the barrier's energy pushes against it. Zhang Yang stares in shock and demands to know what is happening. He realizes in disbelief that Chen Xiao can block a missile. Chen Xiao remains standing calmly with his hands in his pockets. He warns Zhang Yang that he cannot afford to lose in front of so many people, then asks if Zhang Yang wants to go back on the bet. The barrier's power crushes the missile completely, shattering it into pieces. The fragments fall to the ground near Chen Xiao, while he continues to stand there without moving. Chen Xiao slowly walks down the steps, staring at Zhang Yang. He coldly says that Zhang Yang does not even have the dignity of a decent knife, and is not worthy of negotiating terms with him. Watching him approach, Zhang Yang feels uneasy and thinks that something is definitely wrong with this guy. Chen Xiao then says that Zhang Yang has repeatedly crossed his line, and it is time to settle the score. Zhang Yang quickly begins calculating the situation in his mind. The fuel they brought has already been used up in the fight, and Chen Xiao has strange abilities. Moreover, Chen Xiao's safe house is like a gold mine. Thinking about it, Zhang Yang decides that recruiting Chen Xiao would be better. If he succeeds, he could recover his previous losses with interest. He immediately changes his attitude and nervously says that it is all a misunderstanding. He claims the two of them could even be considered friends after a fight, and suggests making a deal. Zhang Yang tries to persuade Chen Xiao, saying that killing him would only leave blood on Chen Xiao's hands. In this world, human life is cheap, but he could help Chen Xiao live better. Chen Xiao quietly listens as Zhang Yang continues. Zhang Yang says he has a batch of medicine, including antibiotics like penicillin and cephalosporin, and asks if Chen Xiao knows how valuable those things are right now. Even a tiny infected wound can take a life, so if Chen Xiao lets him go, he will split the batch of medicine with him. Chen Xiao calmly replies that in times like these, antibiotics are indeed a hard currency. He then leans close and tells Zhang Yang that he is honest. What he has stored is far more than just this room, much more than Zhang Yang could ever imagine. Zhang Yang smirks and says that Chen Xiao only has food and drink but no medicine, and a single illness could be fatal. Finally, Zhang Yang suggests cooperating with him. He reveals that the batch of medicine is hidden in an abandoned factory in the West District, and claims that only he knows the password to access it. Chen Xiao looks down at Zhang Yang and calmly says, "Alright." Hearing that, Zhang Yang immediately relaxes as Chen Xiao says that tonight's matter ends here. Zhang Yang keeps nodding repeatedly, saying it is good that the misunderstanding has been cleared up. Chen Xiao casually puts an arm around Zhang Yang's shoulder and walks with him as if nothing happened. He politely tells Zhang Yang to go ahead first, and says the details of their cooperation can be discussed another day. After walking a short distance, Zhang Yang separates from Chen Xiao and returns to his own group. One of his subordinates calls out, "Boss!" Zhang Yang clenches his fist, and then signals his men. "Brothers, let's go!" The group immediately leaves the area together. Chen Xiao quietly watches them disappear down the street. Smoke from burning cars drifts through the night air. Then he calmly mutters that a password alone cannot stop him. Even without it, he can still open the door. Later, Chen Xiao returns to the staircase where several survivors are waiting. He reassures them, telling them that everything is fine now and that those people are gone. Nearby, Auntie Wang looks back at Chen Xiao with curiosity and relief, as the tension in the group finally begins to fade. Grandpa Wang tightly holds Chen Xiao's hand with gratitude. He thanks Chen Xiao for saving his life, and says that if Chen Xiao ever needs this old man in the future, he only needs to ask. Although he is old and cannot fight anymore, he can still help with small things like planting crops or doing chores. Chen Xiao gently tells Grandpa Wang that he understands his good intentions. He advises him to go back home first, lock the door, and rest well. The crowd slowly disperses, and the quiet night returns under the blood-red moon hanging above the city. Meanwhile, Zhang Yang and his men are walking through a narrow alley. One of his subordinates says that Chen Xiao really scared them just now. Zhang Yang scoffs and laughs. He says he only pretended to cooperate. He never intended to share the medicine with Chen Xiao. According to him, it was only a stalling tactic. First stabilize Chen Xiao, then wait until he gets the supplies into his hands. After that, he would decide how to kill him. In his eyes, Chen Xiao was still too inexperienced. One of his men flatters him, saying their boss is truly wise. If Chen Xiao dares to fight Zhang Yang, he probably will not survive more than 3 days. But Zhang Yang suddenly grows serious. He admits that something about Chen Xiao feels wrong, and even artillery shells seemed unable to get close to him. He orders his subordinate nicknamed Pineapple Head to secretly investigate Chen Xiao for the next couple of days. Before he can finish speaking, a red flash suddenly cuts across the darkness. In the next instant, Zhang Yang's body stiffens as blood bursts from his neck. His expression freezes in shock as the unexpected attack strikes him. The moment Zhang Yang collapses, the alley erupts in panic. His men stare at the body in horror as blood spreads across the ground. One of them screams in terror, shouting that their big brother has turned into a ghost. Fear spreads instantly through the group, and someone yells for everyone to run. The gang scatters in chaos, fleeing the alley as if death itself is chasing them. From above, the silent city street can be seen, with Zhang Yang's lifeless body lying alone in the middle of the empty road. High on the rooftop of a nearby building stands Chen Xiao. Calm and unmoved, he looks down at the dead body of Zhang Yang. With a faint smile, he quietly says his farewell. Boss Lu Zhanyang, goodbye forever. Meanwhile, news broadcasts begin spreading across the city. An emergency notification announces that the global high-temperature phenomenon has completely spiraled out of control. Multiple climate tipping points have already been breached, and the entire ecosystem is approaching collapse. Authorities now advise citizens to make a choice based on their situation. The first option is to migrate north to temporary shelters set up by the government. The second option is to stay where they are and wait for rescue. The broadcast repeats again and again that this is not a drill. Standing by the window, Chen Xiao watches the city in silence. In his mind, he scoffs at the announcement. Migrating north to that so-called pure land will only lead people into another purgatory, and waiting for rescue is nothing more than an empty dream, because he knows the truth. The real nightmare has only just begun. Before long, terrifying creatures born from mutation will appear. Heat-resistant mutant beasts will rise across the world. Monsters capable of devouring everything humanity has built, threatening to wipe out the entire civilization. Chen Xiao knows that creatures like this will soon dominate the planet. At the same time, humans themselves will begin to change. Some people will awaken special powers. These awakened will rise among humanity, forming factions and fighting each other for territory and precious resources. In this brutal new world, survival will depend on strength. Battles between awakened will erupt everywhere. Watching this future unfold in his mind, Chen Xiao understands one thing clearly. Simply protecting his current shelter is not enough. What he truly needs to do is transform this place into the ultimate fortress, a final stronghold capable of surviving the coming apocalypse. Later, outside his building, a group of desperate residents gathers. Their homes have been destroyed by the scorching heat and spreading disasters. Hunger and anger have pushed them to the edge. One of them shouts that everyone is starving and homeless. Someone suddenly brings up Chen Xiao's name. They know that he occupies a large, sturdy building all by himself. Inside, there is food, water, and even air conditioning, luxuries that no one else has. Another man angrily demands to know on what grounds Chen Xiao deserves to keep everything for himself. Soon the crowd begins shouting toward the building. They accuse Chen Xiao of refusing to help earlier, claiming that his selfishness caused everyone to suffer. They demand that he come out and give an explanation. Finally, they declare their decision. Chen Xiao must share the shelter. Everyone will take turns living inside. According to them, it is the only way for everyone to survive together. Meanwhile, inside the building, Chen Xiao calmly cooks a piece of steak in the kitchen. While the desperate crowd shouts outside, he quietly flips the meat in the pan, completely unconcerned with the chaos beyond the walls. After finishing the steak, Chen Xiao casually takes a photo of the meal with his phone. Then he uploads it to the neighborhood group chat where the starving residents are complaining. Within seconds, the messages explode. People stare at the photo in disbelief. Someone angrily asks how Chen Xiao can still be eating steak while everyone else is starving. Another person curses, saying they can barely find water to drink while he lives comfortably with air conditioning and good food. Others accuse him of deliberately provoking them. The anger spreads through the chat like wildfire. At that very moment, system appears before Chen Xiao's eyes. Jealousy plus 150, anger plus 130, despair plus 95. The negative emotions of the crowd are being converted into points for him. Looking at the screen, Chen Xiao smiles faintly. Incompetent fury is the cheapest emotion in the apocalypse. Outside, the furious crowd grows even more restless. One of the young men grits his teeth and shouts that Chen Xiao dared to mock them by posting that photo. In his rage, he swears that he will definitely kill him. The man swings his arm violently and throws his phone to the ground, smashing it in anger. Inside the building, Chen Xiao calmly prepares to leave. He decides to head toward an abandoned factory in the Western District to scout the route first. As he opens the door, A wave of scorching hot air rushes inside from the outside world. The heat outside is intense enough to make sweat instantly form on his face, but Chen Xiao remains completely composed. Suddenly, a sharp blade spins through the air toward him. Someone outside has thrown a large kitchen cleaver directly at the door. In a split second, the weapon slams into the door with a loud metallic crack. Yet Chen Xiao doesn't even flinch. Outside Chen Xiao's house, several furious men rush forward. One of them raises a cleaver and roars, "Chen Xiao, if you don't hand over the house today, we brothers will cripple you." They charge straight at him, convinced that overwhelming numbers will easily crush him. But before the bald man can even finish his threat, Chen Xiao suddenly moves. In a flash, he steps forward and closes the distance instantly. His hand shoots out and grabs the man's wrist that's holding the cleaver. The blade stops mid-swing. The bald man's eyes widen in shock as Chen Xiao twists his arm violently. A sharp crack echoes through the air. The man screams in pain as his arm bends unnaturally. Before he can react, Chen Xiao continues the motion and slams him downward with terrifying force. The bald man's body flips through the air and crashes onto the ground. The other attackers freeze for a moment, stunned by the sudden display of strength. But one of them, a blonde-haired man, roars and rushes forward with his own cleaver raised high. Chen Xiao doesn't hesitate. He steps forward again, his movement smooth and deadly. In a single decisive strike, the blade flashes across the air. Blood sprays as the blonde man collapses instantly. The violent scene unfolds in broad daylight, right in front of the surrounding buildings. From nearby windows, terrified residents watch everything happen. One of the attackers stares at Chen Xiao in horror and shouts, You dare to kill people in broad daylight? So many people are watching." Chen Xiao stands there calmly, the cleaver still in his hand. At that moment, the familiar red interface appears again before his eyes. Fear on 1,000. The terror spreading through the crowd has turned into an enormous amount of points. The injured blonde man sits on the ground while holding his arm and looks up at Chen Xiao. He questions whether Chen Xiao intends to kill him. Chen Xiao looks down at him calmly and explains that killing him would only dirty his hands. The other men lie injured on the ground nearby. Chen Xiao walks away while explaining that killing them directly would be letting them off too easily. He continues that in this weather their wounds will develop infections, ulcers and sepsis, and within a few days they will slowly rot in pain. Later, Chen Xiao arrives at a factory in the West District. He stops in front of the entrance and notices a surveillance camera mounted above the building. Seeing the camera, he immediately raises his arm and attacks. The strike destroys the camera instantly as it shatters into pieces. Afterward, Chen Xiao pushes open the factory door and steps inside. As Chen Xiao steps inside the factory, a strange smell fills the air. Dark green gas begins spreading through the room. He immediately starts coughing and realizes that it is poison gas. Struggling to breathe, he realizes that he has fallen into a trap. His body grows weak as the gas affects him. Through the thick gas, two figures appear standing behind. A man wearing a gas mask approaches and injects something into Chen Xiao's arm with a syringe. Soon after, Chen Xiao's eyes open sharply. The masked man asks whether the young man is feeling any better and explains that the nerve gas is not fatal, though it is very unpleasant. Chen Xiao coughs slightly and asks who they are. He wonders why there are guards here and realizes Lu Zhangyang never mentioned this place. He questions whether the old man set him up, yet notices that the two people in front of him do not seem malicious. The masked man introduces himself as Lin Guodong, a biomedical researcher focusing on the study of human evolution in extreme environments. He then introduces the woman beside him as his student, Su Rui, and explains that he is the person in charge of this place. Su Rui greets Chen Xiao with a small wave. Professor Lin explains that the gas outside is a necessary anti-theft measure. He then adds that he is more curious about the tool Chen Xiao used, saying the incision he made looks very unique. Chen Xiao thanks Professor Lin for saving him and repeats the words biomedical researcher with surprise. He looks around the place and wonders what this facility really is. Nearby, a large skeletal specimen with sharp teeth stands displayed. Chen Xiao continues examining the surroundings and wonders if this place is simply a medicine storage room. Professor Lin tells him that if he needs medicine, he can freely take it. He adds that Chen Xiao can consider it his apology for the security measures, and also a meeting gift. Chen Xiao walks to the storage cabinets and begins taking medicine. He places bottles and boxes into his bag, while Su Rui kneels nearby with the case she brought, and Professor Lin watches quietly. Chen Xiao thanks Professor Lin after taking the medicine. He walks away with his bag on his back and heads toward the exit. Behind him, Professor Lin watches as he leaves, and quietly remarks that they will meet again. A faint smile appears on Professor Lin's face. Later, outside near the residential building at sunset, Chen Xiao arrives at a door and opens it. He reflects that although Professor Lin saved him and did not make things difficult for him, the way the professor looked at him made him uneasy. Chen Xiao checks his phone. A message appears asking if anyone has antibiotics and hemostatic drugs, and offering to buy them at a high price. Chen Xiao looks at the supplies he just obtained, and decides that although he only got a few boxes, and the effect should be good, they are not for sale. Soon after, messages begin appearing in the homeowners group chat. Several people angrily insult Chen Xiao. calling him selfish and shameless. They threaten that once they recover, they will come to his door and take his life. At the same time, the system reports anger plus 99, hatred plus 200, and jealousy 380. Chen Xiao sits near the door and opens his backpack, checking the medicines inside. As he looks through the bag, he suddenly notices a small device attached inside. He realizes that it is a tracker. Holding the small device between his fingers, he wonders who placed the tracker in his bag and when it was put there. Looking up at the tall buildings around him, he thinks that someone must be trying to track his location. Instead of panicking, he calmly decides that if someone wants to play a tracking game, he will play along. A white cat walks along the alley nearby. Chen Xiao crouches down beside it and gently pats its head, asking the little cat to do him a favor and take the device to the places it usually likes to go. He then places the device on the cat. The cat lets out a soft meow. Afterward, the cat moves along the narrow ledge of a building and disappears into the surrounding area, carrying the tracker away. On a laptop screen, a tracking map shows a strange and irregular movement pattern. Watching the screen, Professor Lin becomes confused and wonders what is going on with the movement pattern and what Chen Xiao is doing. Meanwhile, messages continue appearing in the homeowners group. One man urgently asks if anyone has medicines such as anti-inflammatories or fever reducers, saying his brother is dying and accusing Chen Xiao of refusing to help save someone who is dying. Another message appears from a woman carrying a crying child. She pleads that the child has not had clean water for 2 days and asks if any kind person can spare a little, adding that she is willing to trade her treasured picture books and that everything is negotiable. Seeing this, Chen Xiao recognizes the situation as the same sympathy-seeking act again. He recalls how in the past, the woman used this trick to gain quite a few benefits from others. Another message then appears in the group accusing Chen Xiao of stockpiling many supplies but refusing to share, claiming the child is dying of thirst, and calling him an irresponsible and selfish man who deserves to be singled out. Chen Xiao dismisses the accusation, thinking that the claim is ridiculous because the child is not his responsibility. He states that hypocrisy and moral blackmail will not work on him. On his phone, he tagged the woman named as Wang Wei, saying that Wang Wei had stockpiled 3 boxes of water and 2 boxes of canned food, and urging her to bring them out to share first, promising that whatever she shares will be matched with double. Wang Wei, reading the message, suddenly reacts with shock, realizing that he had actually installed cameras in the hallway. She realizes that although she thought she had been careful, she was still captured on camera. Messages quickly begin flooding the homeowners group chat. Someone exclaims in shock that Wang Wei had actually hidden so much water and demands that he bring it out immediately and share it with everyone. At the same time, several men arrive at Wang Wei's door. Without hesitation, they start violently smashing the door with tools and weapons, trying to break their way inside. One of them shouts angrily at the people inside, ordering them to hand over all the food and drinks immediately. He warns that they should not force them to take further action. Inside the apartment, Wang Wei, who had been manipulating people earlier, is suddenly confronted by the intruders. The situation escalates rapidly as the group storms into the room. Boxes are thrown everywhere while the men begin grabbing supplies frantically, pushing and fighting over the stockpiled goods. The apartment quickly turns chaotic as they seize everything they can carry. Meanwhile, Wang, who had tried to use sympathy to manipulate others, is left sitting helplessly on the floor. Her body is bruised and covered with marks, and tears begin to stream down her face as she realizes the terrible consequences of what has happened. Later, the residents gather around the body lying on the ground as flies buzz around it, and the smell begins to spread through the stairwell. One of the men lowers his head sadly and murmurs a quiet farewell, telling his fallen brother to rest in peace. But another resident quickly objects. Leaving the corpse there would be dangerous. In this intense heat, it would soon rot, fill the building with a terrible stench, and possibly spread disease to everyone. Anxious murmurs ripple through the crowd. People begin whispering nervously, unsure what to do next. Some even wonder bitterly whether anyone outside still cares if they live or die. At that moment, a calm and steady voice interrupts the panic. Professor Lin steps forward and tells everyone to stay calm and not panic. He introduces himself as Professor Lin and explains that he and his companions are a medical team sent by the city's CDC to help the residents. Professor Lin tells them they came as soon as they received the order, but the roads were blocked along the way, which caused them to arrive later than expected. Even so, he assures everyone that the situation can still be handled. He explains that in such extreme heat, corpses must be professionally disposed of immediately to prevent contamination and the spread of disease. Professor Lin warns that if the body is left untreated and an epidemic breaks out, the consequences would be unimaginable. The frightened residents slowly quiet down as they listen to his calm explanation. Soon after, Professor Lin's team begins distributing disinfectant tablets and basic medicine to the people, reminding them that the supplies are limited and must be shared according to need. Grateful residents accept the medicine eagerly, thanking them again and again. Some even say with relief that they knew the country hadn't forgotten them. However, while the others celebrate the arrival of help, Professor Lin silently observes the crowd. Behind his composed expression, his mind is calculating. The signal in this area had been extremely chaotic, which means the person he is searching for must still be somewhere nearby and couldn't have gone far. Meanwhile, Shan Zhao stands inside his apartment and quietly looks out through the large window toward the neighboring building. Across the building, several residents gather in the stairwell around Professor Lin and his group. The moment he notices Professor Lin among them, Chan Xiao becomes alert and wonders why he has appeared here. The thought makes him question whether Professor Lin might be tracking him. At that moment, his phone suddenly vibrates. A new message warns him to watch out for that doctor. Chan Xiao looks at the message with confusion and wonders who sent it. Meanwhile, on a distant rooftop, a man operates a long telescope mounted on a tripod and carefully observes the building. Inside the apartment, Chan Xiao lowers his head slightly while holding the phone, remaining silent as he thinks about the warning and Professor Lin's sudden appearance nearby. Chan Xiao narrows his eyes and wonders if someone else might also be watching him. He immediately tries to call the number that sent the message, but the automated voice informs him that the number he dialed is a virtual number. Realizing he cannot call back, he understands that the sender is deliberately hiding their identity. Holding the phone in his hand, Chan Xiao considers whether the message is meant as a reminder or if someone wants to use him to deal with Professor Lin. Outside, several people gather around while speaking about the situation. One of them expresses gratitude for Professor Lin's help and explains that in such hot weather, if bodies are left for too long, something bad could happen. Professor Lin calmly tells everyone that he has already done what he should. He reminds them to be careful of heatstroke and says that if anyone feels uncomfortable, they can find him anytime. From a distance, Chan Xiao observes the scene carefully. He notices something on Professor Lin's clothes that looks like bloodstains, but also seems similar to some kind of dried reagent. Chan Xiao recalls that shortly after the heatwave outbreak in his previous life, medical teams appeared in certain areas claiming to collect residents' blood samples for epidemic prevention, followed by the mysterious disappearance of many strong-bodied people. Meanwhile, Professor Lin stands nearby with a calm expression while the medical staff handle their work. Later, he quietly places a large notice onto a public bulletin board as leaves fall around him. Two residents stand in front of the notice board and read the announcement. One of them feels surprised that there will even be free water and says Professor Lin is truly a great person. The other agrees and says that even in such hot weather, he still wants to give everyone checkups. In a quiet alley, the white cat eats from a bowl placed on the ground. Professor Lin walks into the alley and notices the cat. Looking at it, he remarks that the little one is eating happily. He gently reaches out and strokes the cat's head. At that moment, he realizes that he has been spotted. The system displays speechlessness +25 and unwillingness 39. Nearby, the hooded man, Chen Zhao, secretly watches the scene and confirms that it is really him. He reveals a faint smile. Elsewhere, many people gather inside an underground parking area. A woman complains that the weather has been too hot and it has not rained for a long time, wondering when rain will finally come to cool things down. A man notices that it actually feels cooler inside. At a temporary medical station, Professor Lin sits at a table while his assistants holding a clipboard assists him. He asks a resident for their name, age, and whether they have experienced any recent physical discomfort. The elderly man answers that his name is Chen De. He is 76 years old, has had no recent discomfort, but his blood pressure has always been high. Chan Xiao quietly watches the scene from the side. As the examination continues, Chen De questions why blood also needs to be drawn. Professor Lin calmly explains that it is only a routine check. A tube labeled CHT-017 fills with blood as the sample is collected. Chan Xiao watches Professor Lin closely and wonders what exactly he is trying to do. Suddenly, someone in the crowd urgently calls out for the professor. A young man rushes forward with others supporting an injured companion. He pleads for help, explaining that his brother is injured and infected and begs Professor Lin to save him. Professor Lin calmly takes out a small vial. He explains that it is a new type of broad-spectrum enhancer that can accelerate wound healing and resist infection. He injects the medicine into the injured man. After finishing, he calmly tells him to rest well for the next couple of days and says he will recover soon. The injured man, Abu, still sweating from pain, thanks Professor Lin. Nearby, Chan Xiao silently observes the situation, watching every detail carefully. Outside, Abu is helped away by his companions. Their boss, named as Zhang Qiang, asks Abu if he is alright. Abu struggles to walk and tells Zhang Qiang that his bones feel like they are burning, and that the pain is unbearable. He suddenly groans in pain as the burning sensation intensifies. Beneath the bandages on his arm, the veins bulge and spread violently under the skin as the pain surges through him. Abu's eye turns red as swollen veins spread across his face. His body suddenly erupts with violent energy as he throws his head back and roars. Seeing this, Zhang Qiang is shocked and calls out to him, asking what is wrong. Abu suddenly rushes forward and grabs Zhang Qiang by the throat. Zhang Qiang struggles and tries to calm him, telling him to let go and reminding him that he is Zhang Qiang, his boss. Abu stares at him with rage and reminds him that when Zhang Qiang pushed him out to block the knife last time, he did not think about him being his boss then. He then violently throws Zhang Qiang to the ground. Breathing heavily, Abu suddenly shouts and demands to know who is there. He quickly notices someone nearby and realizes it is Chen Zhao. Chen Zhao stands calmly in front of him with his hands in his pockets. Abu, now completely ferocious, charges straight toward Chen Zhao. As Abu charges forward with a powerful swing, Chen Zhao quickly dodges the attack. Observing him carefully, Chen Zhao notes that Abu's strength has surged more than 3 times, but his joints appear stiff, and his attacks move in a completely straight trajectory. Chen Zhao calmly concludes that this reaction is absolutely not a normal drug reaction. When Abu lunges again, Chen Xiao counters and cuts Abu's neck. Abu crashes to the ground, while Chen Xiao lands steadily. Chen Xiao declares that it ends here. Abu slowly rises again, his body covered with bulging veins, as the mutation continues to spread across his arm and neck. Chen Xiao stands quietly in the alley, looking down at him. Abu lies on the ground with tears streaming from his eyes. The alley becomes silent. Later, Professor Lin notices something strange, and wonders what is going on, saying the positioning signal has stopped here again. He explains that an nanorobot tracker was placed in the reagent, so there should not have been any problems, and the positioning signal had been normal just a moment ago. He suddenly notices something and stops. In the alley, Abu lies motionless on the ground with blood pooling beneath his head, while Zhang Qiang sits nearby. Professor Lin raises his device and scans the scene. Looking at the data, he explains that the T7 prototype agent caused excessive stimulation that led to a nervous breakdown, but that should not be the direct cause of death. His attention shifts to the body as he observes the wounds carefully. He notes that the fatal wound on Lu Zhangyang's body and the cut marks on the door lock that day are all extremely neat and smooth. He concludes that no equipment or weapons could cut such traces, and that this is definitely not something an ordinary person can do. After thinking for a moment, he recalls the young man he met that day, and feels that the man was unusual. He concludes that he did not misjudge him. With a faint smile, he considers that the man may truly have the thing he has been looking for. Zhang Qiang coughs repeatedly while blood drips from his mouth. Professor Lin kneels beside him and tells him not to move because his injuries are severe and his lung lobes might be bleeding. Zhang Qiang weakly recognizes him as Professor Lin and asks why he is there, begging him to save him while mentioning Abu. Confused and shaken, he asks what happened to Abu. Professor Lin expresses sympathy for his friend and shows him a picture, asking if he knows the person, and explaining that the matter involving his friend may be related to him. He asks if he knows where that man went, explaining that only by finding him can the truth be clarified and prevent more people from getting hurt. Zhang Qiang immediately recognizes the person in the picture as Chen Xiao and says he knows where his home is and can tell him. Professor Lin reassures him and tells him not to worry, saying he will arrange professional treatment immediately because his laboratory has the best equipment. For the time being, he tells him to go to the laboratory to recuperate. Zhang Qiang thanks Professor Lin sincerely. Later inside the laboratory, Zhang Qiang asks how Abu became like that when he had just finished the injection and had not even walked 2 steps. As he tries to explain that he had just finished the injection, and then something happened, he looks uneasy. Professor Lin calmly explains that the individual experienced an extreme rejection reaction to the reagent, which is very rare, and says they will check everything in detail before arranging the best treatment for him. Professor Lin stands in front of the isolation room doors, while Zhang Qiang repeats the words rejection reaction and hesitates. He nervously suggests that he should simply go home to recover, and asks if he can just be given some antibiotics. Inside the laboratory, Professor Lin uses a card to unlock a secured door, while Zhang Qiang sits in a wheelchair behind him with another person standing nearby. Professor Lin calmly tells him that for science and for his own sake, he should remain quiet. Zhang Qiang suddenly panics and protests, shouting for him not to do it. His loud scream echoes through the isolation area, whereas Chen Xiao lies on a sofa in his room with one arm hanging down beside the couch. He looks thoughtful and wonders what Professor Lin Guodong is actually trying to do. At the same time, someone presses a button on the door and knocks. Professor Lin's face appears on the display, and he calmly greets Chen Xiao, introducing himself as Professor Lin and asking if they can talk. He apologizes for disturbing him so late, confirming that Chen Xiao truly lives there. While standing outside, he casually remarks that the weather is very hot today, and that the sky is so cloudy the stars cannot even be seen clearly. Inside the house, Chen Xiao stands with his arms crossed and asks why Professor Lin is looking for him so late. Professor Lin explains that he heard Chen Xiao lived there and came to see him. Chen Xiao thinks that Professor Lin arrived at his door faster than expected, and decides to meet him since he came on his own initiative. Professor Lin remarks that he did not expect to meet him again so soon. Inside the living room at night, Professor Lin comments that the house is quite special. He observes the structure carefully and explains that the double-layer insulated glass and the independent water circulation system make the house look far from ordinary. He concludes that it resembles an apocalyptic safe house instead of a normal residence. Professor Lin then wonders if Chen Xiao had already known long ago that extreme high-temperature weather would arrive. Chen Xiao says that he bought the renovation package during the Double 11 sale last year, and the contractor claimed it would be guaranteed for 50 years. He had thought it was just exaggerated marketing and did not expect the contractor to turn out to be correct. Professor Lin finds this interesting and tells Chen Xiao that he came today because he wants to ask him about something. Professor Lin informs Chen Xiao that their neighbor Abu is dead, and that Liu Zhangyang, who previously caused Chen Xiao trouble, also died some time ago. He explains that he examined their bodies and found that both had their cervical vertebrae severed instantly, with cuts so smooth they resembled laser surgery. Wounds like that could not be made by ordinary knives, and even military weapons would struggle to produce such results. Chen Xiao listens quietly with a faint smile. He then suggests that it might be a murder weapon produced by the same manufacturer. Chen Xiao jokingly remarks that if Professor Lin ever finds out, he should recommend it to him. Professor Lin shows interest and asks what Chen Xiao would use such a thing for. Chen Xiao casually answers that it would be used to cut steak, since refrigerators are unstable in extreme heat, and meat becomes tough easily, so a good knife would be useful. Professor Lin falls silent for a moment. The system displays speechlessness 12. Professor Lin then states that regardless of the details, both victims most likely died at the hands of a single person. He further explains that the killer used a very professional technique, clearly not something an ordinary person could do. Chen Xiao responds calmly that perhaps the victims simply had bad luck and interfered with something he should not have touched. Professor Lin remarks that he heard both victims had conflicts with Chen Xiao. Chen Xiao smiles lightly and responds that Professor Lin really knows how to joke, explaining that he is just an ordinary person and could not possibly have such capability. He then points out that Professor Lin came specifically to find him late at night with a medical kit and asks if Professor Lin thinks he does not notice that detail. Chen Xiao also mentions that he does not remember ever giving his address and asks how Professor Lin managed to find his place. Professor Lin then reveals that the person who told Professor Lin where he lives is someone Chen Xiao also knows. Chen Xiao asks about Zhang Qiang. Professor Lin shows Zhang Qiang lying in a hospital bed with breathing equipment attached, his body covered with injuries. He explains that Zhang Qiang is heavily injured and that he is currently saving him. Chen Xiao asks about Zhang Qiang's current condition. Chen Xiao thinks that Zhang Qiang's life has been very difficult, but falling into the hands of this old fox might make living worse than death. Professor Lin explains that Zhang Qiang is adapting to a new therapy, adding that in a high-temperature environment the human body can evolve, and Zhang Qiang is simply adapting a little faster than others. Chen Xiao wonders what Professor Lin means by this and suspects it might involve human experiments. Finally, Chen Xiao directly asks what Professor Lin's true purpose is for coming to find him. At the same time, Zhang Qiang's hand suddenly tightens on the bed as alarms sound. His eyes turn pale and unfocused while the breathing mask remains over his face. Moments later, he violently sits up on the bed, roaring as his body tenses. His vital signs are fluctuating violently. A certain indicator has turned red, and the genetic mutation rate has reached 37%. Meanwhile, Professor Lin explains that an immune enhancer has been developed that can resist various pathogens under high temperatures without side effects. He places a syringe filled with blue liquid on the table. Chen Xiao observes that the color looks like blueberry soda and wonders if it needs to be shaken before drinking. Professor Lin remains silent while the system displays that his speechlessness increases. Chen Xiao lifts the syringe and looks at it closely. Professor Lin then states that he already knows Chen Xiao is not an ordinary person. He explains that as the global temperature continues to rise, the world will change. The survival rate for ordinary people will be less than 10%, but some people will certainly evolve. Chen Xiao wonders if this means evolving using Zhang Qiang's method. Professor Lin adjusts his glasses and explains that this is a necessary price for scientific progress, because someone must always walk ahead. He adds that Chen Xiao possesses more stable evolutionary traits and suggests they cooperate to find a method for humanity to adapt to the new world. Chen Xiao calmly asks what would happen if he refuses. Professor Lin responds that there is no need to rush the answer. He explains that the rising temperature will persist, and that infections, diseases, and mutant creatures will appear one after another. He then tells Chen Xiao that cooperating with him and using this knowledge and technology could allow him to live longer. Before leaving, Professor Lin says he will leave the reagent behind, and that if Chen Xiao changes his mind, the doors to his laboratory will always be open. Professor Lin observes that Chen Xiao's mental quality is extremely strong, and that his defensive awareness is top tier, concluding that Chen Xiao is indeed not an ordinary person. He then concludes that live samples are far more valuable than genetic data, and that Chen Xiao will not be able to escape. Later, Chen Xiao thinks that this old schemer is difficult to deal with, experimenting on living people while speaking in such lofty terms. He then thinks that if he does not get rid of Professor Lin, his days will never be peaceful. Chen Xiao looks down with a faint smile, and declares that since Professor Lin wants to study evolution, he will show him what real evolution is. Later, a device reports that the vital signs stabilize. Adrenaline surpasses the threshold, the mutation process is complete, and the sanity signal drops to 0. Professor Lin observes the result and acknowledges that the process worked, noting that hatred, fear, and pain served as the necessary catalysts. He declares that Zhang Qiang has been reborn and orders him to begin his first mission, which is to bring Chen Xiao back alive. Su Ru questions him, pointing out that using living people for such experiments has already crossed the ethical limit. He dismisses the concern, explaining that when the apocalypse arrives, morality becomes a luxury, and sacrifice will be exchanged for a greater chance of survival. He then instructs Zhang Qiang to depart immediately. He repeats the order that Chen Xiao must be brought back alive. Zhang Qiang smashes forward violently, his transformed body bursting with strength as he breaks through the door. Later, he leaps down from the rooftop, descending rapidly toward the ground below. Zhang Qiang steadies himself after landing, his back covered in bulging veins, then turns his head with a sharp, hostile glare. Chen Xiao stands leaning against a tree, arms crossed, recognizing him and noting that it has only been a few days, yet his appearance has completely changed. He then wonders whether he should keep calling him Zhang Qiang in the future, or change it to Wang Sai or someone's slave. Hearing this, Zhang Qiang's anger increases by 1,000, and system reports that Zhang Qiang's face twists as he roars, declaring that Chen Xiao must die. Chen Xiao observes that emotions have become stronger after the beast transformation, with harvesting efficiency increasing by more than 30%. Chen Xiao tells him to follow, suggesting they move to a more spacious place. He immediately runs ahead, stating that he does not want to fight at his doorstep, avoid disturbing the neighbors, and warns that if his safe house is damaged, Zhang Kang would not be able to afford the cost. Zhang Kang crouches low on the ground, his veins bulging as he steadies himself in the parking area. Chen Xiao raises his arm and moves to strike, intending to let him experience a spatial cut. The attack lands across Zhang Chang's body, but he endures it. Chen Xiao notices that his skin has become much thicker. Zhang Chang immediately lunges forward, charging straight at Chen Xiao. Chen Xiao remarks that Zhang Chang used to be a guy with both strength and intelligence, but now he cannot even speak human language clearly. The system displays that anger increases by 1200. Zhang Chang roars furiously while Chen Xiao comments that his current appearance looks extremely ugly. Professor Lin has terrible taste and suggests introducing a more reliable Tony next time. The system displays that anger increases by 2000. Zhang Chang's body tenses as something seems off, his posture turning strange. Chen Xiao notices the change and becomes alert. In the next moment, Zhang Chang rushes in and slams his attack directly into Chen Xiao's body. Chen Xiao presses his hand against his bleeding abdomen and realizes the attack was from bone spikes. Far from this, Professor Lin observes from the monitoring room and notes that this is a second-stage mutation, where emotional outbursts catalyze evolution, instructing Su Rui to record all data, while she questions whether this is truly the path to saving humanity. Zhang Chang stands with his body covered in protruding spikes, calling out Chen Xiao's name before declaring that he will die. His body starts to change and he lunges forward, crashing toward Chen Xiao with force and strikes him. Chen Xiao couldn't block this attack and he clicks his tongue as blood stains his clothes. The system reports that spatial cut has reached the intermediate level at 87% and warns that the target's energy fluctuation continues to rise. Chen Xiao steadies himself, thinking he only needs a little more, then remarks that Zhang Chang is not impressive and mocks him for thinking he is like a hedgehog, just because he grew extra bones. The system reports that anger increases by 1000 and humiliation increases by 1000. Zhang Chang grits his teeth as his body trembles with rage. Chen Xiao stands in front of him and reminds him that back when he was collecting protection fees in the old district, he at least dared to grab a steel pipe and attack people. But now, after a few injections and growing some bones, he thinks he has become someone important. Zhang Chang roars loudly. Chen Xiao continues that Professor Lin tells him to bite whoever he wants, and he obeys, asking if he is still just a dog. The system reports that fury increases by 1700 as Zhang Chang lets out a strained cry. Professor Lin observes with satisfaction, stating that the emotional peak has reached the critical point and bone density has increased by another 5%, adding that Chen Xiao is helping stimulate him. He then urges Zhang Chang to become even angrier so he can see his limits. Su Ri looks at the screen with concern and wonders what Chen Xiao is doing. Zhang Chang's body glows red as his muscles tighten and expand, and the energy around him surges violently. A powerful burst erupts from him, sending energy exploding outward. Chen Xiao leans back slightly and looks at the incoming red spikes, wondering if that is all. He steadies himself and tells Zhang Chang that if he has the guts, he should come again. The system reports that fury increases by 2800, then informs that negative emotions have reached the upper limit of 30,000, and the skill can evolve into Spatial Rift Annihilation, asking if it should evolve immediately. Chen Xiao immediately agrees. He confirms the decision without hesitation, urging it to proceed right away. He raises his hand and forms a swirling black sphere surrounded by blue energy. The power expands into a spinning vortex as the space distorts. Spatial Rift Annihilation activates, tearing through the area. Zhang Qiang is struck and thrown down violently, screaming that his hand is gone. Chen Xiao stands calmly, looking at him in silence. He reaches down and pulls off the collar device from Zhang Qiang's neck as blood drips from his mouth. On a large screen, Chen Xiao's face appears while Professor Lin stands watching, and he remarks that Professor Lin's test subject is not very good, and that next time he should send someone who can actually fight. Professor Lin quietly calls out Chen Xiao's name. He then laughs loudly, saying Chen Xiao is indeed different from the rest, and that sooner or later he will capture him. Back at the scene, Zhang Chang lies weakly on the ground. Chen Xiao places his hand on Zhang Chang's head and says that seeing how pitiful he is, he will send him on his way. He calmly says, "You're welcome." Soon after, a man wearing gloves adjusts them and remarks that it is truly splendid. Chen Xiao turns his head, noticing the presence, and asks who it is. This man is named as Chen Shixing, who comments that the scent of death is always so primitive and pungent. Chen Shixing calmly continues, praising the fight, calling it brilliant, and remarks that even though this is a desperate era, it's also one where gods will rise. Chen Xiao stares at him coldly, staying alert, then activates his skill, forming a small, controlled energy vortex in his hand, showing precision rather than raw destruction. Chen Shixing then analyzes Chen Xiao, saying his power, control, and destructive capability prove he isn't some incomplete experiment created by Professor Lin Guodong. Chen Xiao immediately questions him, asking if he knows Lin Guodong and whether he's an accomplice. Shixing denies it, saying he's actually the opposite. He's here to stop Lin from continuing his atrocities. He then reveals something important. The anonymous warning message Chen Xiao received earlier was sent by him. Chen Xiao is visibly surprised and suspicious, asking how Shixing even got his number. He introduces himself properly. Chen Shixing, representing the organization called ARC. He presents a card marked with their symbol and explains their purpose. ARC searches for the awakened. They believe the world is about to undergo a massive transformation. Only elites will survive and enter the new era. He offers Chen Xiao a place among them, promising true evolution, not the twisted, inhuman experiments of Professor Lin Guodong, but a controlled and rational advancement. Chen Xiao looks down at the card, processing everything. When he asks what ARC actually is, Shixing explains, it's an organization gathering powerful awakened individuals, preparing for a coming change, and Chen Xiao clearly qualifies to join them. He again tells Chen Xiao to join, offering things Lin Guodong cannot. Shixing holds a black card and explains that they can make him stronger without ugly mutation, allowing him to maintain reason, control power, transcend mortals, and follow the true path to becoming a god. Chen Xiao questions if the path to becoming a god makes him a charlatan. Shixing pauses in confusion. Chen Xiao suddenly swings, striking forward and knocking the cards away while cutting in half. Shixing looks shocked as Chen Xiao smirks and remarks that his hand slipped. Chen Xiao states that he hates when others arrange his life. Whether it is a madman like Professor Lin Guodong or a hypocrite claiming to be elite and becoming a so-called god, he declares that he will not choose either and will walk his own path. He is used to being alone, does not need anyone to teach him how to live, and does not need to join any ARC group. Shixing watches him and acknowledges that he has character, adding that he appreciates him more and more. He then warns that in this world about to collapse, savage growth might let him live for a while, but not for long. Chen Xiao walks away and states that he will not be bothered with that. A dark swirling force forms behind Shixing, while he says that when Chen Xiao realizes the limits of one person's power, the door to the ARC will always be open. The system displays that Chen Shixing generates disdain 99, speechlessness 55, surprise 66, and apprehension 50. Chen Xiao looks forward and observes that he appears emotionally stable, but still contributed a considerable amount of negative emotion. He declares that if there is a limit, he will break it, but before that, there is something else to do. He turns slightly and states that it is time to end things with Professor Lin Guodong. Later at a different place, he raises his hand and a dark force spreads across the door as he reaches it. The door bursts open, revealing a room filled with tanks containing small bodies. Chen Xiao looks at the scene and questions if this is Professor Lin's so-called scientific ideal, then calls it nauseating. He stands among the tanks and states that it is better to burn a place like this sooner rather than later. Professor Lin appears and welcomes Chen Xiao, noting that he came after all. He continues that he knew he would come and questions how a perfect sample like him could be willing to live an ordinary life. He adds that Zhang Chang was defeated as expected, and that trading his life for Chen Xiao's arrival made it a worthy death. Then asks if Chen Xiao has finally decided to dedicate himself to the great evolution of mankind. Chen Xiao looks at him and calls it disgusting. Professor Lin questions whether humanity's arc is truly rational and controllable, then mocks Chen Shixing and his group as hypocrites wearing divine robes. He tells Chen Xiao that every step of human progress was achieved by stepping over corpses and wading through pools of blood, and that his ability is a God-given treasure that should not be wasted on trivial matters of mortals. Chen Xiao asks if he is done talking, then states that human progress is none of his concern. He could have ignored this mess, but since he let him in, he has the confidence to deal with him for disturbing his peace. A dark energy gathers in his hand as he says he can only ask him to disappear. Professor Lin tells Chen Xiao that he is still too young, and since he dared to enter, he has the confidence to keep him there. He adds that after the battle with Zhang Chang, Chen Xiao's stamina must be low, and advises him to obey and stay by his side to avoid suffering later. Chen Xiao looks at him and asks what would happen if he refuses. Professor Lin responds that there is only one outcome. He presses a device in his hand. Glass containers around them shatter. Chen Xiao raises his arm to shield himself as fragments scatter through the air. A figure drops down toward him. Professor Lin declares that Chen Xiao will become his test subject. Chen Xiao moves forward and strikes. Dark energy gathers around his arm and cuts through the attacking figure, splitting its body. Professor Lin tells Chen Xiao to stay and says he will make him stronger. Monsters rush toward Chen Xiao from multiple directions as he lowers his stance and prepares to move. Chen Xiao remarks that relying on a few mindless creatures is not enough. For now, his stamina is running low and he must end the battle quickly. Chen Xiao dashes forward while monsters chase him. He swings his arm, releasing a curved wave of dark energy. The attack strikes a monster. The creature reacts in pain as its body is cut through. Chen Xiao lands and steadies himself. He shows a strained expression but remains composed. Chen Xiao states that he thought Professor Lin was capable, but instead tried to hold him with only 3 monsters. He walks forward toward Professor Lin and says Professor Lin is the one who is too naive and has lived decades in vain. Chen Xiao declares that it is over and says he will send Professor Lin on his way. Professor Lin faces him, then drops to his knees coughing. He says Chen Xiao will not last long enough to make it home. All the data on the mutation reagent has already been sent out. Professor Lin remains kneeling, bleeding, and says the seeds have already been sown and the world will become more interesting. Chen Xiao looks at him with a tense expression, sweat visible. Professor Lin warns that Chen Xiao will not make it home in his current state. Chen Xiao holds his injured side and stands in silence. He notices someone and turns his head, asking if she is Lin Guodong's assistant. Surui appears and tells him not to be nervous, stating she means no harm. She presents a repair fluid and says it can quickly stop bleeding and stabilize injuries. She hands a small bottle toward Chen Xiao. Chen Xiao looks at the bottle silently. Surui explains the medicine is safe and warns that without using it, the wound will become infected quickly. Chen Xiao questions her, saying Lin Guodong has just died, and her sudden appearance with medicine is too coincidental to trust. Surui says it is normal for him not to believe her, but there are things he might need. She adds that if he still has strength, he can follow her. Surui walks with Chen Xiao through a stocked room filled with supplies and equipment. She explains that her teacher had predicted the worsening conditions long ago, and had prepared everything in advance, though he was more afraid of death than he appeared. She can no longer stay and will leave as well, telling Chen Xiao to take whatever he needs and consider it an apology on her teacher's behalf. Chen Xiao looks at her and questions if she is leaving. Suru recalls that she once applied to be her teacher's graduate student because she believed he was a true scientist. She reveals that she later discovered he had been conducting human experiments. She admits that although she did not directly participate, she became an accomplice. Surui says she will go to a Northern Research Institute to continue proper research, and if she survives, she wants to develop a real antidote instead of something that creates monsters. Surui leaves, expressing hope that when they meet again, the world will be better. Chen Xiao remains alone and looks over the supplies, noting items like protective suits, antibiotics, and water purification tablets. Recognizing that everything had been carefully planned, he activates space and reaches toward the dark portal and takes items, stating they now belong to him. He has taken what he needs and has no reason to stay. Chen Xiao stands holding a lighter, looking upward. He sets room with fire. Later, Chen Xiao appears in a different setting, holding a box and looking toward the wall-mounted display showing high temperature readings. Chen Xiao looks at the wall display showing the temperature reading. He notes that it has already exceeded 58 degrees outside. A broadcast states that the Global Meteorological Bureau has issued a red alert, with many places around the world surpassing 50 cc. Permafrost has completely melted, releasing large amounts of methane, and that the greenhouse effect has entered an irreversible cycle when these days will end. Chen Xiao turns off the device. The system displays that current negative emotion points are insufficient and the space cannot be upgraded. Chen Xiao reflects that his supplies are enough for now, but the outside environment will only worsen, and he needs to increase his strength quickly. He considers that water has become hard currency, and that it is the right time to collect emotional value. Large amounts of bottled water are stored in his space. He messages Mukang asking about water sales and offering to bring goods, stating they are out of stock. Mukang responds. Later, Chen Xiao meets him in a secluded alley. A person approaches and Chen Xiao asks if he is there to trade for water and says they need it urgently. The man asks how much he can get. Chen Xiao calculates that trading 2 bottles of water is acceptable. He looks at the other man and states that he does not appear to be a reasonable person, setting the price at 1 bottle. The other man reacts in anger. Chen Xiao notices this and raises the condition, requiring the man to say words of gratitude and praise in exchange for the bottle. The system notification shows an increase in anger. Chen Xiao warns that if the man refuses, the price will continue to rise. The man, sweating and visibly irritated, forces himself to comply and expresses thanks, calling Chen Xiao a great philanthropist. Chen Xiao responds by telling him to bring more goods next time, stating he will only allow half a bottle in future trades. Later, Chen Xiao encounters Grandpa Wang outside. He asks why the old man is still awake so late. Grandpa Wang explains that a neighbor is raising her grandson alone, and that the child has suffered heat stroke. He adds that water and electricity are frequently cut off, so he intends to deliver water to them. Chen Xiao tells him that water has become increasingly precious and advises him to prioritize himself. Grandpa Wang acknowledges this but says he cannot bear to watch children suffer. He proceeds to deliver the water. The woman named as Liu Yun receives it and expresses gratitude, calling him a good person. Grandpa Wang urges her to quickly give the water to the child. She watches Grandpa Wang leave while holding the bottle. Her thoughts describe him as foolish for giving away water so easily, noting she only needed to bring 2 bottles and now must suffer more tomorrow, considering taking more from him next time. She walks to a door and knocks. A man named as Zhao Chan opens the door. She addresses him and presents the bottle as an offering for the day. He accepts it from her hands. Elsewhere, Mu Kang checks his phone and notices a message stating that trading has stopped and the deal is cancelled. Chen Xiao remarks that this is already the third cancellation. Mu Kang suspects that something is wrong and that someone may be watching. He turns toward the alley. A group of men appears and identifies the location. Chen Xiao faces them, holding a bottle, and asks if they are looking for him. The group confronts him, accusing him of secretly selling water. They shout an agreement and claim he is making people dependent on commercial water. One man points at Chen Xiao and declares his sins are grave. Chen Xiao remains seated, holding the bottle, and responds mockingly, questioning what they drink. If commercial water is evil, then they must drink pee. The group reacts with anger and disbelief at his words. Their leader steps forward and explains they are followers of the Pure Water Society, claiming ordinary water drains the Earth's resources. He states that only water purified by Lord Zhaoqin can absolve sins. He demands Chen Xiao hand over his water as an offering. Chen Xiao shows confusion. The leader raises his arms and proclaims that global heat is divine punishment for humanity's exploitation, insisting restraint brings forgiveness, and that Lord Zhaoqin acts as God's agent. Another man warns Chen Xiao to surrender the water and join them to avoid disaster. Chen Xiao looks at them and calls them weak cowards worshipping a cult. The group reacts angrily. The leader regains composure and says Chen Xiao has not witnessed Lord Zhaoqian's miracles. He claims that once seen, Chen Xiao will kneel and worship as they do. Nearby, Mu Tang comments that they are just a group of superstitious people. Chen Xiao questions their claim that his water is evil and brings punishment. He deliberately pours water over himself and drinks, showing no concern, and calls it refreshing. The leader warns that even this act will bring retribution and labels him impure. System records rising anger, disgust, and helplessness from the group. Chen Xiao smiles and says joy should be shared, then proposes a deal. He states that anyone who curses Zhao Qin will receive a barrel of water, one curse for one barrel. The leader erupts in outrage, calling it blasphemy and declaring his sins unforgivable. Some hesitate and question if cursing him will truly earn water. Chen Xiao calmly affirms his word. The leader angrily orders them to be silent. A follower then shouts the curse against Zhao Qian aloud and clearly says that Zhao Qian is son of a beach. The cult leader orders his followers to restrain the man who spoke. The restrained follower cries that he wants water and cannot endure any longer. Chen Xiao watches and remarks that the man is not destined to enjoy his water. The cult group withdraws, deciding to leave. His companion Mu Kang notes they did not actually attack. Chen Xiao says the situation is not over and that continued interference will force action. He resolves to completely uproot them. Later on the walls, scenes show propaganda posters claiming the Pure Water Society will save people and warning against unclean water. Chen Xiao arrives at a large church-like building. Inside, the man Zhao Chen sits on an ornate chair while a woman lies unconscious on the floor. Chen Xiao observes from a window. Zhao Chen tells everyone to watch closely while holding a bottle of water. Water is poured from the bottle onto the unconscious woman lying on the floor. Her eyes slowly open, showing signs of regaining consciousness. A nearby man declares that a small amount of water can cure heat stroke and praises Zhao Chen. One says he will follow him forever. Chen Xiao watches from outside through a gap, observing silently. He questions whether the woman is a plant or if Zhao Chen is an awakener. The woman kneels and says she cannot repay Zhao Chen and wants to serve him. Zhao Chen reassures that every offering is remembered. He speaks about punishing the greedy and claims the extreme heat is a divine filter. He looks at her melons and states that only believers in God can survive. He then orders others to hand over impure water so he can purify it. A men confront Chen Xiao and question why he is there. One of them declares that impure people are not allowed inside. Our bro Chen Xiao instantly changes his attitude and says he was blind before. He speaks about the worsening heat and the shortage of water. He says he does not know what the future will look like. Chen Xiao kneels in front of them. He expresses fear and says he does not want to die and offers all the water he has, calling it filthy. Zhao Chen is shocked by the large amount of water present. He acknowledges him, saying he has heard of him and that his sins are heavy. He says that since Chen Xiao is willing to repent, he will be given another chance. Chen Xiao looks forward calmly. He thinks that they are taking all the water and only giving back the minimum, while calling it holy water. He thinks it is uncertain whether these people can survive long like this. Then he thanks Zhao Qin. Suddenly, a man runs in shouting that something is wrong. He reports that Aunt Liu Yun's granddaughter has fainted and shows signs of heat stroke. Liu Yun says she was fine earlier. She kneels in panic and says she already gave the girl holy water. Qin Xiao thinks that earlier the same claim of heat stroke was used as a trick to take someone's water. Liu Yun begs Zhao Qian to save the child and offers more in return. Zhao Qian says there is only one explanation if the holy water failed. He says she is not devout enough. Liu Yun is shaken and tries to respond. Zhao Qian tells her to stop making excuses and reflect on herself. He announces that he will perform a true miracle the next day at noon for everyone to witness. The crowd expresses gratitude toward him. Chen Xiao watches with a faint smile. A man gives Chen Xiao an armband and says he now belongs to the Pure Water Society. He adds that because of the large donation, Zhao Chen will overlook his past. but he should not forget his sins. Chen Xiao puts on the armband and agrees outwardly. He thinks the group are fools and notes that a transmitter has already been installed on the water barrels. Later, he approaches a closed door and concludes everything is stored inside. He activates an ability, dark energy forming around his hand while cuts the door in half. He enters the room. Inside, supplies and bottled goods are stacked throughout. He confirms his suspicion that there is no holy water, and that Zhao Qian is hoarding resources. He notices Zhao Qian speaking with the same woman nearby. As the woman begins to speak, Zhao Qian suddenly strikes the woman across the face, saying, "Shut up, I am a true feminist and a good godman." Zhao Qian criticizes her, stating she failed to act convincingly as a recovering patient. The woman kneels, holding her face, and explains that using her power drains her strength. Zhao Qian calls her useless and reminds her that he brought her back from hell. Chen Xiao realizes that the woman is the true awakener. The woman acknowledges Zhao Qian. Chen Xiao observes from behind the shelves and forms a plan. The scene shifts to the apartment building. Chen Xiao enters the room where Lu Yun's granddaughter lies in bed. He approaches her with a focused expression. He raises his arm and throws 3 bottles toward her. The girl wakes slightly, looking at him and asking who he is. Chen Xiao kneels beside the bed and tells her to drink all of it. He states that if she survives the night, she will understand. The scene shifts to the next day while a large public gathers. Zhao Qian stands with the woman under an umbrella before a crowd. He sits cross-legged and begins channeling power. A blazing sun-like force manifests behind him. He declares that as long as they believe, the scorching sun will not harm them. The woman stands nearby holding the umbrella. A person in the crowd realizes it is real. Chen Xiao observes and concludes that Zhao Qian is using an awakener's power to deceive the people. The woman releases a green, flame-like energy from her hand. Chen Xiao watches her closely. The energy spreads as both Xiao Qian and the woman stand within the phenomenon. Chen Xiao raises his hand as dark energy gathers around it. He considers that her ability may be limited by space. The woman suddenly realizes someone is blocking her power from reaching Xiao Qian. She becomes alarmed. Zhao Qian begins to sweat and demands to know what is happening. The interference continues. The woman states that someone is secretly disrupting her ability and she cannot use it from her current position. Zhao Qian orders her to come closer and continue, insisting the miracle must be completed. She thinks that with her current body, she cannot endure the heat for long. She looks toward the crowd. Among them, Chen Xiao stands calmly. She recognizes him. Zhao Qian calls out again, telling her to hurry and continue. Suddenly, something strange happens. The woman recalls a statement that Zhao Qian will be killed and his place taken, and that it is already too late to stand with him. She looks shaken. She steps forward despite Zhao Qian calling her useless and questioning where she is going. Zhao Qian remains seated, watching. Chen Xiao stands ahead, calm, as she moves behind him. She wraps her arms around him from behind. Chen Xiao notices her sudden change in attitude. She explains that her ability is forced heat dissipation. It accelerates the transfer of heat from inside a target's body to the surface. Chen Xiao considers it a convenient ability. The woman says that it can also be used differently, focusing heat dissipation only on the head and heart. She explains that removing heat from those areas sharply reduces blood flow to the brain. The woman holds onto him as his body reacts. Chen Xiao feels dizziness, noting that his head is spinning. The woman stands with glowing red eyes, her expression empty. The scene shifts to the past, daytime memories of the woman named as Lin Jing. She kneels in an alley, holding a weak cat, pleading for it not to die. The cat struggles in her arms, then weakly responds. Someone calls out to Lin Jing from above. She looks up while holding the cat. A man inside shouts for her to come back. Inside, she is forced down, her head grabbed. The man states that he raised her and demands repayment. He declares she will sleep with someone in exchange for water. She resists and tells him to let go. The man turns as Zhao Qin with others enter the room. The man demands to know who is he. Zhao Qin states that the scene is utterly disgusting. Well as expected, Zhao Qin kills the man. He says he saw what happened. He states that the cat she held came back to life. He kneels in front of Lin Jing and calls it a blessing from God. He asks her to come with him so they can save more lives. Lin Jing looks at him in shock. Back at the present, Chen Xiao is forced to kneel as a man shouts for him to show respect to Lord Zhao Qian. Chen Xiao strikes. A purple slash cuts through one of the men. The surrounding people scream and call him a demon. Chen Xiao stands before Zhao Qian and states that these people were already criminals before the apocalypse, committing robbery, arson, and extortion. He says anyone who believes them will be finished in this life. Well, our bro knows this cause Mu Kang already gave him intel about Zhao Qian and his group. Liu Yun reacts in shock and denies it. She insists that he is lying. She pulls her granddaughter named as Aling close and claims everything is fine. She insists the recovery was due to prayers and calls it Zhao Qian's miracle. The crowd begins to agree and calls to take down the supposed demon. Alang stands calmly and questions if they have brain damage. She points at him and speaks. She states that the one who saved her was not the so-called miracle worker, but him. She explains that he saved her life by giving electrolyte drink. She adds that without him she would have died because of their superstition. The crowd begins to step back. Liu Yun hesitates, her expression shaken. Lin Jing suddenly collapses forward onto the ground. Chen Xiao remains standing, watching. Zhao Qian pulls out America's favorite weapon and points it forward while firing a shot. He calls her useless and claims she cannot even maintain a miracle. Lin Jing lies motionless on the ground. Zhao Qian becomes confused and insists he is sure he shot her. Chen Xiao raises his hand. A dark circular energy forms in front of him, catching the bullet. He states that the bullet can be sold for a good price and takes them. Zhao Qian realizes the trick and calls him an awakener, saying he used the same method to block the attack. Chen Xiao declares that it is time to end the farce. Zhao Qian smiles unnaturally. Chen Xiao's expression turns serious as he faces him. Chen Xiao notices a syringe being injected into Zhao Qian's arm. Zhao Qian's body swells and distorts as a violent aura erupts around him. He declares that he did not come unprepared. Chen Xiao recognizes the substance as Professor Lin Guodong's serum. Zhao Qian calls it an immune enhancer and claims it cost him a fortune, laughing as he prepares to kill. He lunges forward at high speed. Chen Xiao is forced backward as Zhao Qian closes the distance instantly. He mocks Chen Xiao, saying he cannot handle fast opponents. He grabs Chen Xiao and charges toward the edge. They crash through the railing and fall from the height. Zhao Qian shouts that they will go to hell together. As they fall, he rants about how long he waited for this day. He describes himself as a rural student who barely entered an elite university and could never surpass the academic elites. He says his research was stolen and his youth was wasted, leaving him without any chance to rise. Chen Xiao struggles in his grip. Zhao Qian states that everything changed after the high-temperature apocalypse reshuffled the world. He screams that Chen Xiao ruined everything and deserves to die. Chen Xiao responds that the one who deserves to die is him. A system notification appears, stating that an ability has been unlocked. Space warp. Mid-fall, Zhao Qian notices something is wrong. Chen Xiao disappears from the fall, and his hand. Xiao Qian reacts in shock. His body crashes into the ground below, leaving blood scattered across the pavement. Shen Xiao stands above, unharmed. He states that it is Xiao Qian's bad luck for running into him. Bystanders panic and call him a demon. Shen Xiao walks away calmly. He notices unconscious Lin Jing and observes that she has no bleeding, only fainted from exhaustion and shock. He activates the space warp again. A bottle is pulled through the distortion and into his hand. A bystander shouts that Chen Xiao is not allowed to save the woman and calls him a demon. Liu Yun accuses unconscious Lin Jing of causing everything, claiming she bewitched Zhao Qian. Chen Xiao warns them not to stand in his way. An older man steps forward, calling him a sinner, and declaring they will purify him with hymns. Several people surround Chen Xiao, closing in. They begin chanting about giving thanks to a king, repeating the same rant that the world is nourished and made better because of him. One man shouts directly in Chen Xiao's face while sweating. Chen Xiao in an instant kills the man's body jerking as blood splashes. The crowd is silenced. The distortion fades. Shen Xiao stands still amid the aftermath. He turns back to Lin Jing. He kneels beside her, holding the bottle. He tells her she is very weak and needs to drink if she wants to live. Lin Jing regains consciousness and asks where Xiao Shen is. Chen Xiao tells her he is dead. She looks at him in shock. He asks if she wants to see him one last time. Aling shouts, calling out for her grandmother. Both Chen Xiao and Lin Jing turn toward the voice. Liu Yun appears, realizing everything was a lie and that there is no king. She questions what she can rely on now. Aling screams for her. Liu Yun jumps from the ceiling like someone is sitting down to discover gravity from her fall. Aling runs forward crying. Chen Xiao holds Aling as she buries her face against him. Through tears, she says he does not need to worry about her, blaming the ignorant people and saying her grandmother gave up her life and abandoned her. She declares she will not become like her and will live properly. The scene shifts. They are now inside Chen Xiao house. Lin Jing sitting on a couch while Chen Xiao and Aling stand nearby. Lin Jing reflects that she always thought Zhao Chen was her savior. She realizes he only wanted to use her to commit heartless acts, while also fearing and envying her awakening power. She recalls a memory of Zhao Chen expressing resentment over not awakening powers himself. Chen Xiao explains that before and after the heat wave, Zhao Chen never became an awakener. He concludes Zhao Chen died full of resentment and calls him pathetic. Lin Jing thanks Chen Xiao, admitting she had always been afraid and wanted to help people, but ended up hurting them instead. Aling addresses her as Sister Lin Jing. She comments that Lin Jing was beautiful and devoted, yet still got shotted by the fake king. Lin Jing reacts in shock as a thought forms that Zhao Qian might have been that way, like was Zhao Qian a gay, but then she trails off saying if Zhao Qian was a gay then he was a true sinner, not hurtful. Shen Seo decides he cannot allow another gay or Zhao Qian to appear, and that simply minding his own business is no longer enough. He concludes that he will take partial control of the area. In the past, when Zhao Qin was killed, Shen Xiao reveals that although Zhao Qin is dead, there is still a large amount of water he hoarded. He was the one who eliminated the cult and could have kept the water for himself, but he offers to share the water with them as long as they listen to him. The people accept, expressing gratitude and calling him Lord Chen Xiao. A man watches Chen Xiao and wonders what he is planning. Chen Xiao smiles. Back at the present, the scene shifts to a building with a notice restricting entry. Inside, a man hands over documents at a desk, saying it should be enough. Chen Xiao looks at a property transfer agreement and tells him to take his water. Mu Chang realizes Chen Xiao intends to take over the entire building. Chen Xiao confirms that one safe house floor is not enough, and states he will turn the whole building into his apocalypse fortress. In his previous life, extreme heat ruined buildings with recorded temperatures. Chen Xiao reflects on how things ended up like that. He notes that even the buildings could no longer withstand the conditions. In the present, he stands by the window, watching the heat outside. He notes that the second heat wave will arrive soon and recalls that the previous one was even stronger, enough to soften steel and collapse high-rise buildings. He concludes that renovating the entire building is necessary. He reviews documents and states that the residents already trust him and have agreed to relocate after considering the situation. Later, a broadcast reports that the extreme heat, which lasted 30 days, is expected to subside, but warns it may return and urges preparation. Chen Xiao smiles, thinking the heat will return regardless, though there is a brief chance to recover. The scene shifts to the streets, where people walk outside and comment on how comfortable it feels after so long without fresh air. Chen Xiao observes that the heat has temporarily eased and decides this is the right time to begin renovations. He prepares to act. Aling sits on the sofa eating snacks. Chen Xiao asks when she is leaving. She looks down and reacts nervously, asking if he is kicking her out. Suddenly, she releases a small surge of electricity, striking a mosquito and killing it. She points out the mosquito and mentions her ability. He considers power supply issues, noting generators need fuel and solar panels lose efficiency in extreme heat. He concludes he needs an awakener who can generate power, then allows her to stay. She runs ahead saying she will check on Lin Jing. He calls out briefly, then decides to go check as well. He thinks about Lin Jing's ability, forced heat dissipation, and considers it valuable in the extreme environment. He recalls bringing her into the building to both use her ability and keep her safe. Aling suddenly realizes she forgot to bring a housewarming gift. He watches Aling run off and thinks about her. He notices a nearby door and realizes it is not locked. Inside, Lin Jing is showering, unaware. He opens the door and looks in, then freezes. She notices and screams, calling him a pervert. He panics and tries to explain that the door was not locked. She angrily points out he never gave her the key. He closes the door and stands outside, realizing the situation is trouble. Then addresses Lin Jing, recalling he invited her to move in, and questions if she regrets it. He hesitates, then asks if she fears he might become like Zhao Xian. Lin Jing responds and acknowledges he wants to use her ability, but states she believes he will still hold to his bottom line while pursuing his interests. He replies that no one can be certain about the future. The tone shifts as Aling looks up at him and questions what he is doing. Well, after that, Lin Jing remains on his side, taking charge of redistributing the seized water supplies. For her, this may serve as a kind of atonement. Seventh day after the heat pause, two men stand outside the building near the entrance, waiting in the sunlight. On the second floor, Grandpa Wang and Lin Jing are present. On the third floor, Mu Kang lies on the bed with a relaxed posture while Li Yuyu sits nearby reading a book. Mu Kang feels that having a working air conditioner makes everything comfortable. On the fourth floor, Ailing sits by the window playing a game. Chen Xiao stands at the edge of a high floor and looks down from above. Even though he already took advantage of the cooler spell to redo the building's internal wiring, the resources needed to turn the whole building into a defensive system are not something a normal person can obtain, and his funds are limited, leaving him unsure of what to do. He notices something below. A group of men walks toward the building. One of them tells the boss that there is a lot of water around here, and that a whole building has been taken over by one guy. The boss notes that even this small Luo city has someone so arrogant, then dismisses it and pushes to move forward and take it anyway. Moments later, several of them lie on the ground unable to fight, with one still conscious but struggling, while Chen Xiao stands nearby and adjusts his hand. During the heat pause, many criminals begin drifting across provinces, and now even gangs from outside have arrived here. After a few demonstrations of force, even newly arrived groups keep their distance from Chen Xiao's neighborhood. At a government temporary command center, an officer observes that something feels wrong, since Luo City is already collapsing, yet that one neighborhood remains unusually peaceful. He points out that it is the same area where a cult was wiped out earlier and orders an investigation, while a soldier responds that they currently lack the capacity to interfere in what is essentially gang-level conflict. The officer concludes that his instincts tell him the situation is not that simple. The officer explains that the extreme heat shattered people's old routines, and in this small Luo city there are far too many abnormalities beyond simple unusual events, all hidden in the dark and well concealed. A subordinate reports that the footage has been retrieved and that some parts require his confirmation. The footage shows the church in Luo City on the day of the casualties, where Zhao Qian is seen falling from above the building. Shen Xiao disappears in an instant, and the subordinate notes in disbelief that Shen Xiao then appears safe and sound on the rooftop. The officer immediately orders that people be sent to investigate, and the order is acknowledged. At that night, the team reaches the target building and finds it locked, then identifies a live electric grid trap ahead and changes route. They move to the door panel and complete the crack, after which the team bursts inside and advances with their weapons ready. The soldier becomes alert and looks ahead in confusion. Aling stands inside the room and turns her head, wondering what is happening. She rubs her eye and wonders if she has been playing games too much and started hallucinating. The soldiers notice her and question why a little girl is there, then decide to subdue her first. Electric energy suddenly bursts around Aling as she raises her hand and thinks that breaking into a private home in the middle of the night is improper. Lightning spreads outward from her, striking through the building as she angrily points out their lack of manners. She then wonders if they are government personnel and questions whether they would really arrest her in times like this. Inside the room, Chen Xiao steps out and asks what she is doing in the middle of the night. He then realizes something is wrong and questions why she is not at her own place. Feeling that they are in trouble, Aling smiles with her eyes closed while he reacts in alarm and says, "Oh crap, we fucked up." 30 minutes pass after the special forces lose contact. A helicopter hovers above the building while multiple tanks surround the area below. The same soldier standing on a tank orders Chen Xiao to immediately put down his weapon and hand over their personnel, warning that force will be used otherwise. Inside a room, Mu Cheng sitting on a bed hears the noise and wonders what is happening. He looks outside, sees the tanks below and reacts in shock, realizing the army is present. Lin Jing peeks out from behind a curtain and asks what happened. Grandpa Wang then questions why there are soldiers outside. Through a communication device, Chen Xiao tells everyone to stay in their rooms and decides to handle it himself. He holds a phone and states that he will take care of it. Chen Xiao stands in the doorway while two armed soldiers face him from outside. He looks at them and says that their men broke into his home in the middle of the night and asks them to explain. Outside, soldiers stand near the tank as one of them speaks. The soldier tells Chen Xiao that they have already reviewed the footage from the church that day. The officer says that Chen Xiao has superpowers and that the rumored superpower incidents were not made up. He then adds that superpowers are a rare asset and says that if he is willing to cooperate with their military research, everything that happened this night can be written off. Chen Xiao responds that his answer remains the same and that he will not repeat it. The officer raises his arm and gives the order to open fire. Tankers fire toward Chen Xiao, but a purple energy field forms around him, stopping them in midair. The suspended bullets hover around him as the energy crackles. The soldiers stare in shock, unable to understand what is happening. Chen Xiao extends his hand and returns the attack, sending the halted bullets back. The projectiles strike a big drone, causing a violent explosion. Flames burst outward as soldiers react. The officer, shocked, questions whether this is also Chen Xiao's superpower. Chen Xiao stands within the dark purple aura as the officer states that he already knew their attacks would not work on him, but he did not expect Chen Xiao to be this strong. Chen Xiao says that next time he will be aiming at people. The officer steps forward and admits defeat, telling Chen Xiao that they concede. He continues explaining that a new report from the Meteorological Bureau has arrived, and that the last heat wave was only the beginning, with the next one being even worse. Chen Xiao calmly responds that he has known this for a while. The officer tells him that when that time comes, they will need people like him, adding that the survival of humanity might depend on him. Chen Xiao replies that he is no good person and not some great savior, stating that anyone who messes with him using abilities that let them lie in bed and sleep will be removed. He continues that with what is coming, the world is heading into a lawless age and he is not afraid of their army. The officer begins to respond, but is cut off as the moment hangs with his unfinished words. Chen Xiao tells the officer if he is willing to make a deal, then maybe he can consider. In an instant, the officer asks. He says just name it, as long as Chen Xiao is willing to work with them even just for some days. Chen Xiao responds that he wants to use their military resources to turn this building into a doomsday fortress. The next day, multiple military vehicles arrived near the apartment buildings as construction preparations began. Wu Xiaotian stood with several people and explained that construction would start that day. He added that because some facilities involved military secrets, the core modules would first be prefabricated at the base before being transported there for assembly. Chen agreed without objection. Wu Xiaotian then noticed the young woman beside Chen and asked who she was. Chen explained that she was a resident there and would be acting as his secretary for the day. Wu Xiaotian raised his hand and officially announced the beginning of the fortress conversion project. Construction workers moved engineering design blueprints, while cranes lifted large solar panels onto the buildings. Wu Xiaotian announced that the first item being installed was a high-intensity solar array. He further explained that its durability was more than 10 times higher than before, while both storage efficiency and heat-to-energy conversion were 3 times greater than ordinary panels. Chen listened with interest and told Li Yuyu to make a note of it. Wu Xiaotian introduced the second item, a military backup generator set. He explained that even if the power outage continued for days, it could still keep the entire building running, and he handed over the detailed specifications. Workers welded metal structures onto the building walls as Wu Xiaotian introduced the third item, a composite protective outer layer. He proudly explained that it was bulletproof, fireproof, and insulated, adding that even Godzilla would shiver 3 times after seeing it. Wu Xiaotian laughed loudly in excitement while Chen and Yu Yu watched him in silence. One of them wondered why he seemed even more excited than they were. Workers then installed a reinforced access control and blast protection system at the entrance. With security cameras were mounted around the building as the fifth item, an automatic identification defense system was added. On the rooftop, a satellite dish was installed as the sixth item, an independent satellite communication module. The residents watched the rapid transformation in shock. Grandpa Wang, holding a cup, commented that the setup had become completely over the top. Malang excitedly said their place was really turning into a secret base. Lin Jing looked around in disbelief and said it all felt like a dream. Mu Chang nervously watched outside through the window while sweat ran down his face. Inside the laboratory, several researchers and Wu Xiaotian examined the test results. One researcher explained that Chen's body temperature, heart rate, and cellular activity were all clearly different from ordinary people. It was as if his body was constantly adapting to some external environment. Yuishan and Jiesan explained it in simpler terms. A female researcher stated that their current hypothesis was that the disaster was not caused by simple high temperatures alone. She explained that solar activity had drastically intensified, while unknown magnetic disturbances had also appeared in low Earth orbit. She continued that these abnormal energies were affecting Earth's living organisms, and under extreme environmental stress, some human bodies were undergoing adaptive mutations. Another researcher explained that, in other words, this was what people would call ability awakening. Wu Xiaotian looked serious and remarked that in the future, it would not only be humans mutating. He then noticed that Chen did not seem surprised or afraid. Chen calmly replied that he was not the only awakened human. Wu Xiaotian immediately asked if there were other awakeners and whether Chen had already met them. Chen explained that there was a group calling themselves ARC, an awakener organization that seemed to be recruiting members. He added that he was not interested in joining them, so he turned them down. Wu Xiaotian thinks that, aside from the military, there was another force targeting him, and that it could not be ignored. Meanwhile, a woman stared at surveillance footage showing Chen walking beside another man, which is our boy Mu Chang. As she studied the screen more carefully, she felt that she had seen the other man somewhere before. Suddenly realizing something, she stared at the monitor in shock and muttered that this guy was. She looked at a document with a shocked expression. The file contained a photo and the name Wang Anchao, along with a red stamp labeling him as an armaments department defector and a high-risk missing target. Outside the hospital building, the atmosphere was quiet. Inside the laboratory, a researcher stared at the monitor and said that the cellular activity was still increasing. Another person commented that this was an awakener's body. Chen says that should be enough. Wu Xiaotian decided that they had gathered enough data and said they should stop there. Chen got off the table and said he was heading back. Wu Xiaotian replied that he would have someone see him off. Wu Xiaotian's phone suddenly rang. He answered it and listened silently for a moment before calling out to Chen and asking him to wait. Chen stopped and turned around. Wu Xiaotian showed him the file on the phone screen and asked if he knew the person in the document. The screen displayed Wang Anchao's profile, along with the warning that he was an armaments department defector and a high-risk missing target. Chen looked at the profile on the screen and recognized the man immediately. He thinks that it was Mu Chang, but that he felt completely different now. Wu Xiaotian spoke honestly and told Chen that Wang Anchao was a wanted criminal in the army. He revealed that surveillance footage showed Chen entering and leaving the apartment building with him. Wu Xiaotian said that Wang was currently hiding inside Chen's apartment building. He asked Chen to hand Wang over and promised that he would handle everything else and guarantee the safety of Chen and his friends. Chen calmly asked if Wu Xiaotian really thought that was possible. Wu Xiaotian replied that he did not want to fight, but he had orders from above to bring Wang back. He warned Chen that otherwise he would not be leaving today. Several armed soldiers suddenly surrounded Chen. Chen raised one hand as purple energy gathered behind him like a dark portal. He said that negotiations had apparently failed. The portal burst open with energy as Chen used his power and disappeared. Wu Xiaotan cursed after realizing Chen had escaped. A soldier immediately asked what they should do next. Wu Xiaotian ordered everyone to suspend Chen's fortress reinforcement project and mobilize all armed units. The military announced that they had to subdue Chen and capture the fugitive hiding inside the apartment building. Scene shifts. Inside the apartment, Grandpa Wang noticed that the construction work outside had suddenly stopped. Mu Kang sat on the bed holding a gun and said that he had a bad feeling about the situation. He suddenly realized the soldiers had arrived. Several armed troops appeared outside the window and smashed through the glass. A system warning announced building damage had been detected, and the automatic defense system was being activated. Two soldiers looked around in confusion before golden electric energy suddenly struck one of them. Lin Jing heard the scream and asked what the noise was. She tried opening the window, but realized it would not open anymore. An announcement ordered everyone to remain inside their rooms and wait for further instructions, because the defense mechanism had been activated. She looked shocked after hearing the announcement. Grandpa Wang looked alarmed and asked what was happening. Aling quickly told Grandpa Wang to hurry and hide inside the room. The soldiers raised their weapons while smoke filled the area. A large explosion erupted outside the apartment building when a missile is fired. Inside the apartment, Grandpa Wang sheltered Ailing under a table. He said that the soldiers had only been helping repair the building before, and now something must have happened involving Chen. Both Ailing and Grandpa Wang looked frightened as sweat ran down their faces. Outside the building, several soldiers looked upward in shock. Chen stood in front of the apartment building. Residents looked out from their windows in confusion. One man shouted that the army had surrounded the building. Chen stared ahead and said that if they dared attack his complex, they should not blame him for being rude. A soldier ordered the troops to cease fire. From elsewhere, Wu Xiaoten said that the area was residential and they could not hurt civilians. He then warned Chen that if he continued sheltering a criminal, the army would not be responsible for what happened next. He said he could not act directly against him, but without military assistance, the building would eventually collapse under the extreme heat erosion. Chen stood calmly on top of a tank and smirked. He asked if they really thought he had not seen that coming. He placed a hand on his chest as large reinforced modules appeared around the area. Inside the building, Grandpa Wang stared outside in shock and asked why something so huge had suddenly appeared. Ailing looked excited and called it cool. Wu Xiaotian immediately recognized the objects as building reinforcement modules and wondered when Chen had prepared them. Chen casually explained that the assembly base was right next to the hospital, so he had simply stopped by. He then declared that he would take the materials himself as his share and handle the assembly alone. Two soldiers stared in disbelief, and one muttered that the situation was completely crazy. Wu Xiaotian realized that this was a spatial ability. He understood that it could not only kill, but also function as a strategic-level transportation power. He then coldly reminded Chen that the heat would continue ramping up, and when that happened, the city would inevitably collapse. The burning city fell into urban chaos, filled with fires and riots. Foreign forces had already begun infiltrating the country to seize valuable resources. Chen listened silently as Wu Xiaotian explained that the state was preparing an unprecedented large-scale project to protect the citizens and deal with the crisis. Wu Xiaotian announced the project name as Project Firmament. Chen quietly repeated the project's name while Mu Kang reacted with surprise. Wu Xiaotian explained that the project would create layered thermal insulation structures called sealed underground cities. People would live below ground and only see the sky through domed ceilings. Huge underground living zones would be built to isolate citizens from the heat. People would still see sunlight in the sky, but they would no longer breathe outside air or directly touch sunlight. Returning to the surface would also be strictly forbidden. He continued that the project was enormous and on a tight schedule. It was a race against the heat, and there was no other choice for the sake of the people. Facing Chen, the officer admitted that the project needed his spatial ability. He said that with Chen's help, they could complete the work with half the effort and twice the result. Chen looked at him calmly and remarked that it sounded like a hassle. Wu Xiaotan froze in confusion after hearing Chen Xiao call the project a hassle. Chen looked at him coldly and pointed out that one moment they were trying to arrest his people, and the next they wanted his help with the project. He asked if they were being too self-centered. He continued that they had arrived with tanks, trucks, and gun barrels pointed at him, then questioned whether that was really how they asked for help. Chen warned that if people did not mess with him, he would not bother them either, but if they refused to back off, he would overturn their entire headquarters. Wu Xiaotin tried to calm him down and told Chen to cool his head for a few days. He said he would return when the time was right and everyone had calmed down, as for now retreat. Lin Jing cautiously peeked out and asked if everything was over. Inside the room, Mu Chang admitted that Wu Xiaoten had truly gone very far this time. Later, a knock came at the door while Chen sat on the sofa. He immediately realized who had arrived. Mu Chang entered and told Chen that he would explain everything he knew. Standing across from him, Mu Kang revealed that he used to work in the armaments department. He explained that during one deployment, he discovered that the destination of a batch of weapons was wrong, and those were not ordinary weapons. The weapons were actually core technologies designed for extreme high-temperature environments. He revealed that the receivers of those weapons were foreign forces. He said he originally intended to report the incident, but before he could do so, he was arrested instead. Anyuan then got labeled as a defector. Mu Kang explained that he escaped with some of the armaments, and the weapons he sold to Chen came from that same batch. Chen leaned against the sofa and realized that the equipment shipped overseas was most likely the core hardware for Project Firmament. Mu Kang hesitated and started to explain more about Project Firmament, but Chen suddenly stopped him. Chen sensed something strange and quickly stood up. He asked what was going on and said that someone was watching them. Outside the building, a white-haired woman walked through the courtyard. Well, she is a female agent named as Alyssa. Chen and Mu Kang looked outside the window. Mu Kang was shocked that someone had entered the backyard without triggering the alarms and wondered who she was. Chen narrowed his eyes and said that he would go meet her. He went downstairs while jumping and stood behind Alyssa. She turned toward him and told Chen that they had finally met. She mocked his alarm system and said sneaking in without making a sound had been too easy. Chen asked who she was. Alyssa listed his information. She said Chen was 22 years old, an only child from Luo City, had graduated from Luo City High School, and had dropped out of university to work. She then asked if she was wrong. Chen looked at her and asked what her point was. Alyssa introduced herself and said her name was Alyssa. She was someone who understood him even better than his own military. Chen frowned and said that digging up someone's details was not difficult in this era. He asked what she wanted and warned that his patience was limited. Alyssa told him she was not there to fight. She mentioned the shelter he was building and called it a good idea. She then asked how long he thought a shelter like that could last in the apocalypse. Walking beside him, Alyssa said he already knew about Project Firmament and called it a great plan that could change humanity's fate. Bichun smiled faintly and said that sounded wonderful. Alyssa moved closer and told him it was not that simple. She explained that the plan could only allow a portion of people to survive. Chen looked at her in surprise. Alyssa told him to think about it carefully. An underground residential zone could never hold all of humanity, and that the population in his country alone already exceeded capacity. She continued that once the plan was completed, human screening would inevitably begin. According to her, when that time came, the poor people without power or connections would be the first to be abandoned. Achan asked what that had to do with her coming to him. Alyssa smiled and told him to work with her country. She claimed that only M Nation truly wanted to save all humanity from disaster, and said no one would be left behind. She called them humanity's saviors. She then revealed that she was an agent sent by M Nation to contact him. She already knew that his military had invited him to join Project Firmament. She wanted him to secretly provide them with all the information about the plan, including resources, technology, and intelligence. Chen asked if she wanted him to betray his country. Alyssa stepped closer and said this was about saving all humankind. She insisted they would give him anything he wanted, including money and status. She quietly added that even she could belong to him, and he can bang her whenever he wants. Yup, a very unexpected proposal. Chen smiled and admitted that it sounded tempting. Alyssa laughed and said she liked smart men like him. She suggested they enjoy themselves that night in some nearby motel. As she reached toward him, Chen suddenly struck her hand away and coldly stated that he did not like being used as someone's chess piece. Alyssa cursed angrily after Chen knocked her hand away. She immediately pulled out a gun and aimed it at him. The quiet residential area fell silent under the night sky. Alyssa fired several shots at Chen. Purple energy swirled around the bullets as they rushed toward him, but Chen calmly raised his hand and absorbed the energy directly into his palm. He smiled faintly and asked if that was all. Alyssa laughed and said a space-type ability was indeed worthy of attention, but that was exactly what she wanted. She adjusted the device over one eye and revealed that her true goal was to obtain data on his space ability. A strange digital projection surrounded Chen's body as if scanning and analyzing him. Seeing the enormous amount of information being gathered, Alyssa looked shocked and muttered in disbelief that there was this much data. Chen told Alyssa that he had gained a lot from the church incident, and that it had helped strengthen his space powers. In the data that Alyssa obtained, fear, despair, and negative emotions from the believer's collapse exceeded 99999, while several people lay on the ground in pain. Alyssa smiled and called his ability beautiful, but Chen told her he did not appreciate being spied on like this. Alyssa suddenly became tense as a giant red eye appeared behind Chen. A huge monster covered in eyes opened its mouth in front of her while Chen warned that peeking at other people's secrets was a very bad habit. Alyssa angrily cursed and immediately throws a smoke grenade that created a large cloud of smoke. As the smoke spread around Chen, Alyssa told Chen that they would definitely meet again. Chen stood quietly and realized that his ability had been exposed. He thought that from now on there would only be more trouble. People inside the apartment looked outside in confusion after hearing the explosion and wondered what had happened. Later, construction machines worked around the large structure while workers questioned what all the equipment was for because they had never seen anything like it. You instructed the workers not to ask questions and to install everything exactly as she had ordered. Chen then praised Yu inwardly, saying that as expected of a top student, she understood everything after only a few glances. After some time, finally Doomsday Fortress is completed. Chen smiled and said the fortress was finally finished. He also said he could not wait to test its power. Scene shifts. Inside a luxurious mansion, Alyssa knelt and reported to the master that the persuasion attempt had failed. Chen's ex-girlfriend, Liu, said she had already warned them that someone like Chen Xiao would never be convinced, and that they should simply kill him. The man sitting before them smiled and said that although he was not from this country, he truly liked it there. He said the people were hardworking, intelligent, and clever, and that Chen was the same. It was a shame that talent he could not use would become the greatest hidden danger of all. He added that simply killing Chen would be far too gentle. The man promised that he would make sure Chen die in a much better way. Later, Yu walked through the street carrying a bag. She thought that with logistics shut down, the only way to get supplies now was through offline trading. Someone suddenly grabbed her from behind and covered her mouth. She looked shocked and frightened before losing consciousness. Later, she hung tied up by her wrists inside a building while Liu stood in front of her. Liu asked if Yu was feeling a bit clearer now. Liu held her chin and said she was the woman around Chen. Liu then touched Yu's body and commented that she had a nice figure, though she herself was not exactly worse off. Yu glared at Liu and asked if she had kidnapped her to use her for revenge against Chen Xiao. Liu admitted it and told Yu to lure Chen there. She promised to spare her life if she cooperated. Yu smiled coldly and asked if Liu really believed a few cheap traps would be enough to handle Chen. Liu replied that it was none of her concern and demanded a direct answer. Yu warned her not to even think about it. She explained that she had a tracker on her and that Chen would immediately notice if her movements became suspicious. Liu paused briefly before laughing loudly. She said it did not matter as long as she could drag Chen out of that fortress. She declared that her goal would still be achieved. Liu moved close to Yu and said that before that, she wanted to enjoy torturing her first. Yu looked frightened as two men approached to bang her. Iju's eyes filled with tears as a sudden explosion erupted nearby. Liu widened her eyes in shock and blurted out in disbelief at what had just happened. A military tanker crashed through the area while armed soldiers rushed in. Wu Xiaotian raised his hand and ordered everyone to be restrained. The soldiers quickly grabbed Liu and held her in place. Yu Xian and Liu stared at them in confusion and wondered why the military had appeared there. Wu Xiaotian explained that Chen had contacted him the day before, and protecting the residents in his building was now his assignment. Liu gritted her teeth after hearing Chen's name. Wu Xiaotian immediately confirmed the targets and ordered the soldiers to take them all in. Manged at the Doomsday Fortress, Chen stood beside a speaker while Wu Xiaotian reminded him about their deal. He stated that they would protect his people in exchange for his cooperation. Chen coldly added one condition. He stated that he did not take orders from them. Wu Xiaotian agreed to the deal. Chen realized his instincts had been correct from the beginning. The hidden dangers were already starting to reach the people around him, but now that the military had stepped in and stood on his side, the situation had turned in his favor. An armored military vehicle drove through the streets, while several captured people sat silently inside. Liu lowered her eyes without saying a word. In the past, at night, she walked alone through the empty streets. Her steps trembled slightly as she continued forward. She slowly raised her head and looked at the figures standing before her. Frightened, she asked who they were and begged them not to come closer as two men grabbed her and dragged her away. They presented Liu to their higher-ups. The same man sitting in a red chair crossed his legs and held a black cat in his arms. Hidden in the shadows, he smiled and said for the test to begin. Liu rushed forward while several people lay motionless on the floor behind her, but then she was captured. The man in the suit smiled faintly and declared that she was qualified. Liu was placed on a hospital bed while several medical staff surrounded her. A loud scream echoed through the room as a syringe was injected into her arm. Back in the present, she smiled and asked if they really thought those restraints could hold her. Her hands started melting in water while the guards stared in shock. In an instant, Liu transformed herself in liquid and disappeared. Later, Lin Jing sat across from Chen at a table and explained that most of the society's pure water had already been distributed, and the profits from the sold goods were used to support the families of the dead. Chen leaned back and explained that the supplies had originally been offerings from the cult followers, so he was only returning them to their rightful owners. He added that he did not eat blood-soaked buns because he liked sleeping peacefully at night. Lin Jing smiled and remarked that the answer suited him perfectly. Water slowly dripped from a nearby pipe. Liu, covered in strange liquid, stood before Chen and Lin Jing. Chen looked at her and commented that she was still alive. Liu suddenly attacked Chen's neck with her arm, but black spatial energy burst out and blocked the strike. Liu smiled coldly and declared that she knew Chen's spatial ability very well. She shouted that everyone there would die together. Chen raised his hand as black spatial power spread out to stop the attack. Suddenly, he watched the clash in shock. Sweat ran down his face as he stared wide-eyed and shouted in disbelief. The massive stream of water slammed into Chen and blasted him backward. Lin Jing shouted his name in panic and rushed to support him on the floor, asking if he was okay. Liu laughed loudly as water flowed around her transformed body. She declared that the flowing water was part of her own body and mocked Chen by saying his spatial ability could not carry living things. Liu grinned viciously and announced that Chen would definitely die today. Lin Jing continued holding Chen while Liu approached in her watery form from behind them. Chen narrowed his eyes and raised two fingers. A black spatial slash suddenly opened in front of Liu's attack. Chen looked up in surprise. Liu reformed her body completely from water and calmly stated that attacks were useless against her while she remained in water form. Her floating water form surged forward again as she shouted that Chen had made her life hell and that she would make him pay for it. Chen raised the purple spatial barrier above himself and Lin Jing as water crashed against it. His eyes narrowed when he noticed the water slipping through the barrier anyway, but he stared in shock while streams of water circled around them. Water wrapped around Chen and Lin Jing, forming transparent spheres over their heads. Liu's voice echoed through the water as she reminded him that his tricks did not work on her. Liu laughed and said this was her ultimate move, something she normally would not use on ordinary people. She added that, for her, the attack counted as direct physical contact. Chen and Lin Jing struggled inside the floating water bubbles while Liu hovered above them in her water form. Liu smiled coldly and said she had no reason to hold back because one of them was an adorable cute little girl while the other was her ex-boyfriend. Her watery face twisted with rage as she mocked Chen, asking if it hurt. She declared that what he was feeling was not even a tenth of what she had gone through. Liu accused Chen of refusing to take responsibility for her, killing her backer, and leaving her wandering the streets every night to survive. She was raped by homeless men in the night. Liu shouted that she had crawled back from hell and become stronger because of him, saying he deserved her thanks. Chen, trapped inside the water bubble, weakly muttered that it was all nonsense. Suddenly, a burning impact struck Liu's body. Lin Jing lowered her head while steam rose from her overheated body. She remembered that she too have an ability called forced heat dissipation. Liu stared in shock as parts of her water body suddenly froze into sharp ice crystals. Lin Jing faced her and declared that since the water was part of Liu's body, her own ability could affect it as well. Ice rapidly spread across Liu's watery form. Liu shouted angrily, asking what Lin Jing was doing. She warned that freezing her own head would kill her too. Inside the water sphere, Linjing smiled faintly and said she was not afraid. Chen raised his hand toward it, and Linjing declared that he had arrived. Black energy slashed outward and shattered the frozen water sphere around Linjing. Linjing dropped to the floor, breathing heavily as broken ice scattered around her. Liu looked horrified and asked Chen if he was not afraid of damaging Linjing's brain. Chen stood beside Linjing while she leaned against him. He calmly replied that they had their own understanding. His red eyes narrowed as he declared that this time he would personally send Liu Wanqing on her way. Purple spatial blades sliced through Liu's frozen body, breaking it apart completely. Chen looked forward and quietly said that it was over. Meanwhile, the same man in a suit stood inside a dimly lit room while holding a black cat in his arms. After hearing the result, he quietly said that it had failed. A framed picture of Chen rested on a nearby table. The man revealed a faint smile and said that it looked like it was finally time to get serious. Several powerful figures appeared behind him. Purple lightning crackled around one man. A giant muscular figure stood silently in the back. A woman in black smirked confidently, and a flaming figure crouched in front of them, surrounded by fire. And with this, we've come to the end of today's episode. If you stayed till the last second, drop your thoughts about this story, and in the comments, guess what our MC will do next. A quick like helps more than you think, and subscribing makes sure you never miss what comes next. Thank you for watching, and check out this video right here.